Chapter 2720. Greetings, Senior Marshal Brother. DUI Chimeng landed and bowed. Without waiting for Cui Hongshan to speak, she said, Hongshan was meditating in his residence when he received a strange message talisman. It only said that the person closest to us was waiting here and wanted him to come alone. However, it didn't say who it was. It also said that this matter couldn't be told to Master's wife, Senior Marshal Brother, and Senior Marshal Brother. Otherwise, it would be harmful to the person waiting here. It even said that it would be harmful to our myriad Thunder Valley. We thought for a long time, but couldn't guess who it was. Originally, we didn't want to come, but we were afraid of delaying something. Little brother almost wanted to take this message talisman to Thunderclap Palace. Cui Hongshan said with a smile. The tone inside was really too big. It said that if little brother leaked the news, dozens of lives of our myriad Thunder Valley would be taken as compensation. AI. Xiaohua sighed. Needless to say, wasn't this Zhang Qingxiao's way of doing things? However, this concubine suddenly thought of a possibility. DUI Chimeng said with a smile. Who else but second Senior Marshal Brother could have such a powerful ability and such a mysterious way of doing things? Since it's second Senior Marshal Brother won't be angry that this concubine accompanied my husband here, right? And Chimeng was afraid that little brother would lose something, so I still accompanied him here. Please forgive me, second Senior Marshal Brother. Cui Hongshan said hurriedly. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, saying it's fine. This Xiao didn't expect that the two of you had already held the dual cultivation ceremony. This Zhao's fault. At this point, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, "All right, you said that dozens of lives of our myriad Thunder Valley would be taken as compensation. Does our myriad Thunder Valley have many disciples now?" Ha ha ha, really? Cui Hongshan said with a smile. Our Thunderclap sect has lost many disciples. The great Dao cultivator, which was almost inaudible 10 years, was still slowly dancing on the other side of the passage. Disciples. It was just that the fluctuations in Senior Marshal Brother had were so strong that even though Xiao Hua's consciousness was separated by the passage, there are close to 20 people. He could still feel the vigorous energy within. If our myriad Thunder consciousness can recruit suitable disciples, even somewhat cautious, then we can gradually develop through the passage. Myriad Thunder Valley's position in Thunderclap Palace will also slowly as they swayed. Don't worry, one by one. Senior Brother, faint, strange shapes faintly appeared. Now that eldest Senior Brother and shapes appeared, they gave birth to a kind of fluctuation. They're gradually rising fluctuation positions. A strange sound Thunder Valley emitted is already this sound was like because of eldest Senior Brother's achievements in the Sky Patrol City. And even like the roar of countless disciples who want to join the Myriad Thunder Valley. Green seal text. That's right. When Xiao Hua heard when DUI lay he immediately understood that his previous thought was not without eldest Senior Brother, and moreover, always was also very accurate. Many after a soul-related disciples of other Thunder Palaces have also informed his primordial spirit was already strong enough to be able to use soul. In my opinion, we should recruit a dozen chant the green seal text still required my 10,000 Thunder Valley and even the soul cultivators further cultivation. As soon as he passed through the passage, covered her mouth, a dim yellow scenery appeared. It's all this concubine's fault. Countless dark clouds Senior Marshal Brother had yet to return to the 10,000 like the changing scenery in the sky. There were only eldest Marshal Brother in Shui Land. Under this high altitude, if they recruited too many people, like a grass they might not be floating in water. Moreover, there are no rules not for far from Little White Dragon nowadays. A ball of I don't know which disciple's physique, rather dazzling brilliance. It's better to have like nothing than to have as the water bubble continued to change. Xiaohua these other nations different fluctuations. Cui Hongshan any problems with the light overflowing the entire small and he fell of them. Two of them complemented each other outside very knowledgeable about there was a similar elusive divinity. I'll leave the development primordial spirit Little White Dragon soul to the two so amazing. Xiaohua said with a smile, but he's still never liked these trivial matters when he thought of this. And however, what was different from the primordial slap his forehead. If it's already good that he can do some brilliance, or perhaps heaven through the bubbles master them. Oh, how our master and soul strands. Although Cui Hongshan, the first layer of the soul cultivation, these souls strands, they were all about the development. Things must have broken through the barrier between Xiaohua was concerned about the situation. This is the core and only enters the second layer of the nine. Master had already planned plan
Xiao Hua's mind fell
on the water.
thinking about how
the
he had
water
practiced
soul cultivation
he waited
for a long
until
time,
when
just
you
like how
and
he
I
had
had
finally
finally
broken
broken
formation of Mount Guanyin.
following the changes.
Only then did he
almost
decide the
laughed
green
into
light
seclusion.
reflected
His
on
consciousness
when
looked up
helplessness
at the
was
heavenly
heavenly
figure,
figure,
also
a hint of worry
swayed
appeared
enough
on Shui.
This swaying
was
was
somewhat
brilliant.
compatible.
It's already
been
been
white
several
dragon
years.
But
If
this
this
was
white
the
dragon
dragon
really
already
into
said
the moonlight,
earlier that
what else could it
be?
weak?
Is he
Xiao
trying to
Hua's
break
consciousness
through
almost
to the
Xiao
golden
Hua
way
looked at it
to
from
rush
Xiao
to the
Hua
tent
quietly
heavenly
retreated
ring
asked
chi.
anxiously.
Moreover,
Previously,
yes,
since some of the
although
moon
Xiao
masters tried
Hua's
to break
spirit
through
sky,
to the gold
illuminating
the
the
entire
entire
Ui
Chi
Chi Ming
height
also
was
said
limited
helpless
and it couldn't exceed
what happened
the
to
height
us
of
was
the
incomparably
mysterious.
But now
he felt that our tent
Xiao
easily
Hua
arrived
was
at the
centered
border
value
between the
being
heaven
gold.
and
If little white
dragon
dragon have a
and
gold
the
core
clear
spirit,
how would I
sky
know that
cultivator.
this lightning
See, this is already
tribulation
been
will
several
strike
years
people to
when
death
Xiao
has
Hua
so
saw
many
the
dark
dark
clouds
clouds
that
that
were
were
still
still
There's really a
cultivator
great
now.
terror
He
between
couldn't
life
help
but
but
danger
suck in
and
a difficulty
breath, and in between this
condensing
terror,
these
there are
seemingly
great
endless
he
himself
dark
had
clouds
successfully
were
informed
gold
ordinary
countless
people
souls
already
and
exhausted.
those
If
souls
it was someone else
constantly
condensing a gold
who
core
emitting
out of
serious
air,
fluctuations.
even now
was
when
really
this young
uncomprehensible.
master, as if sensing the arrival,
This young
it
master
definitely wasn't as
day
simple.
or
A similar
really
wave
dancing
of true
crazy,
chi
swept
Xiao
out from
Hua
gap
curled
as
his
the
lips.
light had
Master's
passed.
life tablet had always been
desperate
safe. The dark
situation
cloud
no way
formed
out.
Shui
Hong
Hongshan said hurriedly aside. Master's
This young
wife goes
master
to the
Jade
Jade
have been
archive
sold
hall
strands
every month to
details.
check. Thinking of the
what about
endless
the others?
benefits, Xiao Hua's heart
itched
he was
again,
helpless that he
and he
couldn't
prepared to
condense
look
a
at the
gold
dream
core at the
slayer
beginning of
and
his
mountain
seclusion.
splitter.
It had already been several years.
However,
Who knew
this
when he would
moment,
be able to condense
Zhang
a
Qingxiao's
gold
figure
core
appeared
again.
not far away.
Senior Marshal Brother
and she was
and
happy.
eldest Senior Marshal
Zhang
Brother
Qingxiao's
have both
expression
reached the peak
was a
of
little
the middle
strange,
stage of foundation
as if she was a little
establishment,
excited
and are about
but
to
also a
cultivate to
little
the late
disappointed.
stage of foundation
Zhang
establishment.
Qingxiao's figure landed on
However,
a flying bow.
eldest Senior Marshal
but she
Brother
didn't
is a bit
activate the
busy.
flying bow.
So he's lagging behind
Instead,
Senior Marshal
she
Brother.
asked Xiao
Shui
Hua,
Hongshan
has the
thought for a
nascent
moment
soul
and
master
said,
of your Imperial
on the other
Thunder
hand,
sect
already
Li
gone
Er's
to
progress
Sky Patrol
is
City.
very fast.
Yes. He's
Xiao
already
Hua
at the
said
sixth
curiously,
level of Chi. When I
refining,
met with the junior
right?
brother of the
He's
Myriad
grown up
Thunder
now
Valley that
and
day.
rarely returns
Spiritual
to Myriad
master
Thunder
me.
Valley.
You had already led a
Sometimes
group
when
of
he comes
disciples
back,
to Sky
he
Patrol
stays in his
City.
cave and
What's
meditates.
wrong?
Little brother
Brother Z
also rarely
is in
sees him.
seclusion. Why didn't he go to
Sixth
Sky
level
Patrol
of
City?
Chi refining.
Is he really in seclusion?
curled her
Zhang
lips
Qingxiao's tone
and said with
was
a
a little
smile.
hesitant. I think
Xiao
I heard
Hua
eldest Senior
smiled and
Marshal Brother
replied,
say a
"How
few
would I
days
know
ago
about
that
this
Li
matter?
Is
Even
already
Shui
at the
Hongshan
seventh
only
level
heard
of
about
Chi
it from
refining.
others.
Whether he's
This
really in
it's been a long
seclusion
time.
or not, for your husband, I'm afraid
How can
only
I
the
clearly
eight
distinguish
masters of my
between the
Imperial
fifth,
Thunder sect know about
sixth,
it?
and
Right? Seventh levels
they're
of
all a
Chi
group of
refining.
old foxes.
Shui Hongshan grinned.
Zhang Qingxiao
What about Master's
snorted
wife?
coldly.
Xiao
She seemed
Hua
to be
asked
very
again.
angry.
Hee, what's wrong?
Master's wife
Xiao Hua
is
asked.
currently educating
Other than my
Wuching.
Imperial Thunder
Her cultivation
master,
hasn't
which other
undergone
masters
any
didn't go to Sky Patrol
significant
City.
changes.
Almost
DUI
half of the
Qingming
sects
giggled.
didn't go.
Wuching?
Zhang
Master
Qingxiao
accepted
said
another
lazily.
lazily.
Oh,
What does this have to
right?
do with you?
Is it
Xiao
Master's
Hua asked
wife's
halfway
new disciple?
before he suddenly
Xiao
realized
Hua was
something.
slightly stunned,
I understand
but he
now.
suddenly understood. It's good
It's
that you
not
understand.
Master's wife's
Zhang
disciple.
Qingxiao's
And it's
face
also
was
not
lonely.
Master's
She
disciple.
sighed and said,
Ha ha
I have
ha.
calculated
Shui
everything.
Hongshan
I just want to take
laughed
advantage of
loudly
the
and
time
said,
when
"Take
these
a
nascent
guess.
soul masters
How
go to
could
Sky
I?"
Patrol City.
Xiao Hua was
to
just
spread
about
the
to say that
banner
he
of
didn't
Heavenly
know,
Demon Sect.
but when he saw DUI
But I've already
Qingming's
prepared
originally
everything.
calm,
But they have
face
left
blush
half
again.
of their masters
He suddenly
in their
realized
own
something.
nest. He
One might
slapped his
suppose
forehead
you.
and said, look at me.
Then don't be in a
I
hurry
forgot
to
about
open
this
a
matter.
sect.
Congratulations to Junior
talk
Marshal
about it
Brother
later.
Chui and
Xiao
Junior
Hua
Marshal
said with a
Sister
smile.
DUI. What a
In.
pity. I also have to congratulate Master Zhang Qingxiao stretched and said, in addition to this bad news, DUI I have another bad news to tell you. DUI Qingming lowered her head and said, this is all thanks
Chapter
to Senior Marshal Brothers'
2725.
This
What bad
concubine
news?
is
Xiao
endlessly
Hua
raised his
grateful
eyebrows.
to Senior
Could it
Marshal
be that you're not
Brother?
going with me? Suddenly,
Yes.
Not only
Xiao
can I
Hua
not go
understood
with
why
you,
DUI
even you
Qingming
can't go.
kept calling him
Zhang
Senior
Qingxiao
Marshal
stopped
Brother
playing around
and not Second
and
Senior
said
Marshal Brother
seriously,
like Shui Hongshan.
I just don't know how
Second
you're doing
Senior
with your
Marshal
soul
Brother
punishing
Shui
life.
Hongshan
Oh,
continued.
they're here.
Our myriad
Xiao
Thunder
Hua's
Valley
expression
has turned cold as he whispers. Yes, you should return
him
who's
with
here,
brother.
not them.
Wu
Zhang
Qing is now
Qingxiao
a dying
nodded
child,
slightly and corrected,
and Ying,
but then he
can
clenched
now
his teeth
barely
and
walk.
said,
If
however,
you return,
I can't be
Master's
sure if
wife
it's him
and the others
or
will
not.
definitely
If
be
it's him,
very happy.
I'm afraid I won't
Our
be able to
myriad
escape
Thunder
this time.
Valley can be
If it's not
considered
him,
reunited.
with your help,
Seeing that Shui Hongshan valued the myriad Thunder Valley so
Xiao
much,
Hua's heart trembled.
Xiao Hua's heart
He knew
also
Zhang
relaxed.
Qingxiao's strength.
It was not in vain
And
that he had
although Zhang
supported him.
Qingxiao didn't know
However,
his strength,
Xiao Hua
he should
smiled
have some
and said,
estimation.
Even Zhang
the myriad
Qingxiao
Thunder
thought
Valley
that the two of them
situation
weren't
is
a
really
match
not
for him.
bad.
It's a
This
pity that the
person
great Tao
is
cultivator
really
war
terrifying.
is not over yet.
Xiao Hua,
Brother can
Zhang
only return to
Qingxiao
Shi
didn't
country
answer
occasionally
question,
for official
but looked into
business
Xiao Hua's
and can't
eyes
casually
and
return
said
to the
word by
Imperial
word,
Thunder
"This
Set.
has nothing to do with Shui Hongshan imitated. It has nothing to do and hit his forehead. Little brother have to participate. Was too happy to see second senior marshal brother powerful and neglected this matter. Didn't answer his question. If second senior marshal brother who knew that Zhang Qingxiao, how could you still be more ruthless? And said, that's right. Now, Xiaohua smiled on your shoulders beside the blush on DUI. There's also face gradually faded. Even after I died, looking at Xiaohua's there's still Sean Holming's blood feud. She realized that he was far from the bearing he had when he left Sky Patrol City. Xiaohua said coldly. She didn't dare to recklessly use a spell to probe. Then I'll decide for myself. Cultivation. Zhang Qingxiao, moreover, shook his head. She also understood that even if she did, at this time, would definitely not be able to find out if it's really him. True cultivation. I mention him here. After thinking for a while, be alerted. DUI. Qimeng said Xiaohua sucked in a breath. Senior marshal brother, wasn't this divine ability similar to the power of Zhong Shue's situation? Zhong Haoran's prayer was Xiaohua was very gratified by DUI. Qimeng's thoughtfulness. But this him, and as long as he crossed the she's already cultivated to the middle stage of foundation. Zhang Qingxiao's chanting. I'll let senior marshal brother know. DUI, this kind of divine ability, according to junior marshal sister Severing cultivator Shue has been cultivated. It's not as powerful as you think. The last time she came out for Qingxiao saw Xiao, her cultivation has already reached she knew that he had of the middle stage of foundation. She hurriedly explained, "She's really catching up to an eldest senior marshal brother Xiangyang. I'm the only one senior marshal brother has fallen behind senior. So that's how it is. Sister Xiaohua, someone understood. You'd better go somewhere else." Zhang Qingxiao said gloomily. Earlier, that's right. I wanted to use your cultivation establishment. Was even after Xiaohua. You've never been able to successfully refine. She had only built her foundation for about 20 Although your strength, how could she possibly rush nascent to the peak of the middle stage? You're not a nascent soul stage cultivator after all. In such a short time. There are many methods to an ordinary cultivator. Soul stage this was close to 80 to 90 years. To tell you the truth, when I was on my way back, no matter how I was still thinking about how to join hands with you, she couldn't possibly surpass Fairy Hongxiao by that much. Apart from this, Fairy Hongxiao's cultivation was there really at the middle any other treasure that found strain establishment. How could Shue catch up to Fairy Hongxiao exposed in such a short time? Zhang Qingxiao look at what senior marshal brother slightly. DUI the person you're talking about, I wouldn't have said these words. Senior Marshal the strength of the Demon Realm's Foundation is extremely not something we can compare. And she also has a famous teacher, and I should run as far away as possible. It's natural for her to cultivate to the peak. Xiaohua knew that Zhang Qingxiao couldn't say it out loud. Don't tell me that we can only let senior marshal Zhang Qingxiao shook her head and said, and the rest of us is a demon general behind you of the demon realm. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. You can't say that he's a real demon. If cultivation was he's just a wisp of the demon what was the use of the so-called bitter cultivation? Divine clone. How could the so-called Dao heart? He had just seen his primordial spirit be complete that had gone through the lightning junior marshal sister, and now if there's a chance about the divine. Let senior marshal sister meet Shue. It was Xiaohua thought for a while, even if it's a divine clone. When Shue, you and I entered the Imperial Thunder Sect, even if we joined senior marshal sister was already at the middle stage of foundation establishment. Zhang Qingxiao pursed her thin lips at the peak of the middle stage of foundation, but it's not more than 40%. She hasn't broken through yet. Xiaohua also hesitated sometimes and breaking through too hastily might not be a good thing. Abandon your demonic sect without a solid Can't you just quickly run away from here? It's impossible to walk you don't understand. Too far on the great Zhang Qingxiao smiled yes, this bitterly. Concubine understands. If I don't get rid of this DUI Qimeng's heart I'll be found by him no matter where I run. Where is he? Chapter 27:21. Was he the one who sent you a message just second now? Senior brother. At this point, why did you return Zhang Qingxiao Shui Hongshan anything from Xiaohua? More than a month ago, just now, the deputy sect master of my demonic sect sent me a message when to Sky told me the list of nascent under the soul stage cultivators sent by the three kingdoms master to Sky Patrol. If there are no accidents, he also asked me the remaining disciples of Sky Patrol just when I was hesitating return before the new communication talisman second senior brother in front of me. As she spoke, spiritual master Zhang Qingxiao took out a thumb-sized, pitch-black demonic slip. This demonic slip was a bit different from what Xiaohua had seen before. Through to the late within the pitch-black demonic energy. There were Hongshan's eyes flashed with a trace of fanaticism. The bloodstains were like ghost heads. When sect leader comes out, this isn't the communication talisman. Will also have a late nascent soul stage. Nor is it the communication talisman. We will be on par with the demonic cultivators and other Dawn Rain continent. Oh, I see. Zhang Qingxiao said helplessly. He naturally thought, although there's no information about him inside, he occasionally thought and style of doing things. However, he immediately asked again. Xiaohua didn't take the devil slip.
Who
Instead,
is that
he
spiritual
asked,
master
what did the communication which teacher has advanced to the
He told me to
nascent
open the
soul stage?
sect according
This
to the
person,
previous plan.
Others may not
Zhang
know.
Qingxiao's
But how can
eyes
senior brother
flashed
not
with
know?
a trace of gloom.
Cui Hongshan,
And he told me to go to
thought of his ignorance
Tianju
when he
Peak
first
to
reached
see
the
him.
foundation
It seems that
establishment
he has been
stage
here
and
for a long
smiled
time.
bitterly.
It's
It's
an
an
old
old
friend
friend
of
of
senior
senior
brother
brother
from
from
Qianlei
Qianlei
Palace.
And he even colluded
Qianlei
with some
Palace?
people from your
Oh,
demonic
I understand.
sect.
Xiao
Yes.
Hua smiled.
Zhang
Qingxiao
Qingxiao
nodded.
Gantian,
That's for sure.
Aren't they both Tian? Even if Gantian sect has
Otherwise,
reached the nascent
he wouldn't
soul
have known
stage,
about my plan.
They still use
Yiming,
Tian as
Xiao
their
Hua
Taoist
asked.
name.
Most
How
likely.
arrogant.
Yiming
But then
seems to
Xiao
have come
Hua
from
asked
Mount
curiously,
Million.
if
Zhang
spiritual master
Qingxiao
Huang
gritted his
Tian
teeth
went to Sky
and
Patrol
said,
City.
Then what about
Yiming is
Qiandian?
more sinister
Haha, what do
than
you
I
think?
thought. She
Senior
must have been
brother,
here for a long
do I?
time,
But
Qiming
the deputy
smiled,
sect
as if
master
she was
of my
well
demonic
aware of this
sect
matter.
didn't report to me.
Yes, Senior Huang Tian went to Sky
if
Patrol
Yiming
City,
came looking
so
for the
naturally he
universal
brought
shift
Qiandian
token
with him. Do you think
With
I'll
him
be
there,
lucky enough to
how
escape?
could anything happen
You
to Qiandian?
have the
I'm
Imperial
afraid
Thunder
that
sect
any
to
military
protect you.
exploits would fall
Zhang
like
Qingxiao
leaves.
sighed
So there's no
and said,
need for a tea
or you can give me
house.
the universal
Xiao Hua said in a
shifting
low
token
voice.
now. And you
Tea
can stay
house?
out of this.
Cui Hongshan
Let's
looked
go.
at DUI
Xiao
Qiming
Hua stretched
and was
out his
somewhat
hand
puzzled.
and took
DUI
Zhang Luer
Qiming
into
naturally
space.
knew that
Sighing,
Xiao Hua wouldn't talk
Zhang Luer
nonsense.
is senior
But she
sister's
didn't ask
child.
much.
I
and the
can't
shock in
ignore
her
his
eyes
matter.
Didn't even appear.
Your trouble is my second
Xiao Hua was
senior
just
brother's
about to
matter.
ask another question when he
can't
suddenly
ignore it.
raised his head.
Now that my
slightly
cultivation
and
is
looked to
higher
the
than
side.
yours.
He paused
If
for
I
a
don't
moment
help you,
before he
I
smiled
will
bitterly
master
and
and
said,
eldest senior
"All
brother
right,
reprimand me.
let's not
when they
talk about
find out."
anything else. When did
A
your
fellow
cultivation
Taoist
become
is
higher
urging
than
me
mine?
to return
Zhang
earlier.
Qingxiao's heart warmed.
There are other fellow
but he didn't
Taoists,
give in and
Cui
said
Hongshan
coldly,
and DUI
even if you're
Qiming
comparable
were even
to
more
a
baffled.
nascent soul
When they first
cultivator,
came, you're
they
still
were already
inferior
very
to
careful
mine.
and looked
Hee.
around.
It's useless
Other than
to say
Xiao
more.
Hua, there was
Let's
no
see
one
who
else.
kills him.
How could there be anyone
That's
else?
the real expert.
Of course,
Xiao
the
Hua
two of
said
them
with a
instantly
smile.
understood
All right,
that the
it's a deal.
cultivation of these
Zhang
so-called
Qingxiao
fellow
stretched out his
cultivators
hand
was definitely
pressed on the
not
flying
something
boat.
they could compare
The
to.
flying boat
Xiao Hua
suddenly
didn't care
soared
about
into
the
the sky
astonishment
and
on the
rushed to
two
the
faces.
place where he went.
He stretched out his
Is
hand
Tianju
and pulled
Peak
out
over
several
there?
storage
Xiao
bags
Hua
from
looked
his
into the
bosom,
distance
handing
and
them to
asked,
Cui Hongshan.
Nonsense.
Tianju
Brother
Peak
Chui.
naturally
These are the
isn't there.
spoils of war
Zhang
from this
Qingxiao
battle
smiled
and the rewards
and
for your
said,
contributions.
"Let's first settle
Take
Jiang
them
Lu or
and
give them
down.
to Master's
Then I'll send out the
wife when
order
time is right
for Heavenly Devil
Second
Sect's
senior brother.
establishment.
Cui
Only
Hongshan
then
looked
can
at these
you
storage bags
and I head
but didn't
to
reach out his
Tianju
hand.
Peak.
Instead, he
all
shook
right.
his head and
Xiao
said,
Hua nodded
"These are
slightly,
senior brothers
just as
things,
Zhang Qingxiao
not
had
my
expected.
myriad Thunder Valleys."
The news of the Heavenly
Senior
Devil
brother
Sect
can take them
establishment
yourself.
was like throwing
Moreover,
a huge
because
rock
of Senior
into the
Brother's
already
battle
chaotic
achievements,
Dawn Rain
the
continent.
sect and Thunder
Shocking
Palace have
all the
already
cultivators
rewarded
of the
you
Dawn
quite a
Rain
bit.
continent.
I'm
to the
afraid
point
it's
that
not
they were
appropriate
caught off
to
guard
take Senior
on the
Brother's
Dawn Rain
personal
continent.
belongings now.
Fiendish cultivators
I told
had
you to take
always
them.
been despised
So take
by
them.
everyone.
Xiao
They were
Hua
all
tossed his
inferior
hand
cultivators.
to Cui Hongshan
All the
and
cultivators.
said, "No
When did
matter
you learn
if
to
they
be
were
like
from
eldest senior
cultivation
brother,
sects,
I'm all
cultivation
alone
aristocratic
and don't need
families,
so many
or
things.
rogue cultivators.
You
They
take
all
them
treated devil
and use them to
cultivators
develop my
as
myriad
abnormal.
Thunder Valley.
Even if they're devil
Yes,
artifacts,
Junior
were
Brother
useful,
understands.
and many
Cui
body
Hongshan
cultivators
helplessly
like to
took
use them
and was
They
about
never
to hand
thought
them
that
to
these
DUI
devil
Qiming,
cultivators who
but
couldn't
Xiao
see the
Hua
light of
stretched
day
out his hand
actually
and said,
dared to
"Take these
establish
for
their
your
own
own
sect." Senior
Once
Brother
this heavenly
has something
devil
else for
sect
Qiming
was established.
It was
Cui
established
Hongshan
and
she,
DUI
Meng,
Qiming
and
both
Lien
stared
at the same
blankly.
time.
However,
There were actually
Cui
three
Hongshan
places
was
where
very
the heavenly
obedient
devil
and
sect
put away
banner
these storage
was
bags.
raised.
What's
Xiao
more,
Hua took out two
these
more
three
storage
places
bags
were
from his
originally
bosom
where the
and
Dao
handed
sect's
them to
cultivators were
DUI
located.
He transmitted a
countries
few
Hua
words.
Xian fan
DUI
clan,
Qiming
Jie
stared
Ran
blankly
Zhao
at
clan,
first,
and
and a
Fanxiu
slight
Zhao clan
awkwardness
were
appeared on her
originally
face.
three famous
However,
cultivation
she
aristocratic
immediately bit her
families
lips
in the eastern
and
part
her
of the
eyes
country.
flashed
Now
with
that all their
brilliance.
disciples had
She nodded
joined
slightly
the heavenly
and
devil
took the
sect,
storage bags.
the three
She
families
bowed
were
toward Xiao
originally
Hua
not
and
far
transmitted
from
a
each other
few
in
more
terms of
words.
strength. Now that they were joined
Okay, there's some
together,
good things inside.
they became the
Senior
foundation
brother won't
of the
take them out one
heavenly
by one.
devil sect.
You'll have
in
to
Qi
trouble
country.
himself. Meng country's Dengxian city's Ming clan, Chui, Mo country's take it as a greeting gift from
and
me.
Yi city's Qin
Your martial
clan
uncle
were similar to
that
the
Wu
three
Qing
aristocratic
can't be called
families
martial
in Qi
uncle.
country.
He can only be
However,
called senior
these
brother.
three families
Xiao
had a
Hua
fierce
suddenly
and cruel
realized
battle.
Yes,
with the
this
heavenly
concubine
devil
understands.
sect disciples.
This
However,
concubine
because
will
the
definitely
heavenly
take
devil
care of
sect
this
had been
matter.
planning for a long
DUI
time,
Qiming's
and
tone
these
became
three
even
families
more
were
caught
humbled.
off guard.
Okay,
The surrounding
let's not
small
talk about
cultivation
anything else.
sects didn't have
After
time
the
to
battle,
send reinforcements.
senior brother will come
and the
back
three
to see
families
you.
had already
Xiao Hua
fallen into
thought
the
for a
hands
moment
of the heavenly
and
devil
didn't have
sect.
anything else to say.
He cupped his hands. Lian
flew
country's
into the distance.
Qin Peng Ridge's
Farewell,
Huang clan,
senior brother.
Heavenly Devil Cave's
Chui
Chong
Hongshan
clan,
and DUI
and Fanny
Qiming
Mountain's
bowed
Wang
respectfully.
clan had
When the
long
two
been
stood up
controlled
again
by
and
Zhang
looked up,
Qingxiao.
Xiao
Once
Hua's figure
Zhang
was nowhere to be
Qingxiao
seen in
gave
the
the
air.
order. The two naturally
families
didn't use
simply
their divine
fell under the
senses to
heavenly
search.
devil's sect.
Cui
without
Hongshun
shedding a
smiled
drop
bitterly
of
and
blood.
said, "Wife,
Regardless of
this
whether it
second
was the
senior
three
brother
cultivation
is becoming
aristocratic
more and
families
more
in
mysterious.
Xi country.
Our
Main
hibernating
country
lightning
or
escape
Lian
has
country.
already made
They
some
were all
progress,
very close to each other.
but compared to
They
second
could
senior
train
brother,
together and
it's still
support
far
each other.
behind. The
It's
foundations
not
of the
just
three
that.
heavenly devil sects in the
DUI
three countries
Chiming
were also
laughed
not
and
too
said,
far apart.
Back when we were in
They could
Sky
also
Patrol
support
City,
each other.
we couldn't
Even the
compare to Senior
foundations
Brother.
of these heavenly
Our
devil sects
foundation
were connected
establishment
by
cultivation
secret transmission
bays,
arrays.
and everything
that
we have
Dao
now
Sect cultivators
was given to us
didn't
by
know
Senior
about.
Brother.
The
Do you
heavenly
think you
devil
can compare to
sects
Senior Brother?
move could not
Husband
be said to be
indeed
small,
can't compare
and
to
the
Senior
timing
Brother,
could not be
but
said
I can
to be
compare
not
to
clever.
others.
However,
Cui Hongshun
the
said
nine
proudly
cultivation
and slowly
aristocratic
flew up
families
with
they
DUI
found were
Chiming.
not particularly
And
big,
since husband
and their
has such
relationship
ambition,
with a nearby
this
cultivation
concubine
sects
will
were not
definitely help
particularly
you.
close.
DUI Chiming's
Not to
mood
mention that
was
at this
obviously
time,
very good.
the various
She
sects
even
and clans
glanced in the
had
direction
sent out their
Xiao
elites
Hua flew
to fight
and
the
whispered,
sword cultivators
"It's a pity
of
that
Yuan
Senior
country
Brother's
and
cultivation
suffered
is
heavy
so
losses.
high.
But
It
he
is very
clearly
unlikely
isn't the kind
that
of
they would make a
person who
big
can make
fuss
decisions.
over the
If
establishment
he has the heart
of a devil sect
AI,
like the heavenly
yes,
devil sect.
second Senior
Even
Brother's
in normal
cultivation
times,
is
the
really
reputable
mysterious.
sects and clans
Cui
wouldn't
Hongshun
stand up and
said with a
exterminate
smile,
the
"It
heavenly
seems like
devil
second
sect
Senior Brother
for
really
9
knows
ordinary
about Li'er's
cultivation
tricks.
aristocratic
Perhaps it was
families.
second Senior
Therefore,
Brother who
although
taught
the
him.
establishment
Now,
of the
we can
heavenly
go and
devil
report to
sect had
Senior
caused
Brother.
a great commotion
Yes.
in Xiaoyu continent.
Senior Brother
There were
has
only
always
a few
found it
cultivation
strange
sects
that
that
Li'er's
truly wanted to
cultivation
interfere.
hasn't improved
As for these
for
3
nearly 10
cultivation
years.
sects that were
He
close
thought that he
to
had
the heavenly
encountered
devil
some
sect's
insurmountable
foundations.
obstacles.
They wanted to interfere.
He was always
but
fretting
they
at
were
the side
really
and
powerless.
didn't dare to ask directly.
There were also a few
He insisted
sects
that
that
we
tried to
ask.
send some disciples, but they were
is a
all
person
defeated
who
by
has
the
his own
heavenly
opinions.
devil sect one by
How could he
one.
possibly tell us?
Moreover, it was
DUI
only
Chiming
defeat
also
and
said
not
with
the
a
bloody
smile.
annihilation
Moreover,
that everyone had imagined.
husband said,
Li'er's progress is
This made
amazing.
everyone
He's
heave a
already
sigh
at
of relief.
6th level of chi refinement, right? Senior Brother didn't have any doubts.
Chapter
and directly
27,
nodded.
26.
Is there any need to say more?
Naturally,
he must
after
know that
learning
his
about
realm
the
and cultivation
establishment
of the
don't
heavenly
match.
demon sect.
He must have taught Li'er
Many
this kind of
cultivators
secret
secretly
technique.
pondered. No
After
matter how
all,
well I said
demonic
it,
cultivators
it's not
were
as good
also
as what you said.
cultivators.
I seem to have
Furthermore,
heard from
demonic
Senior Brother a few
cultivators
days
had been
ago
around
that
in the
Li'er
Dawn Rain
is
continent
already
for a long
at the
time.
7th level.
There seemed to be
of
no
chi
conflict
refinement.
of interest.
It's as if
between
Senior
them
Brother
and
really asked you.
cultivators.
The conflict between the cultivators of the Dao sect
I remember that Li'er
and the swordsmen
was already
of
at
the
the
7th level
was
of
far
chi
less
refinement
acute.
before the war.
The current plan
Since
was
you
to
pointed it out
eliminate the
so
swordsmen.
clearly. As for
How
the
could
heavenly
second Senior
demon
Brother
sect,
not
it could be
understand?
dealt with after the
AI.
great battle between
Yes.
the cultivators
Senior Brother
of the Dao
really
sect.
has too many
Therefore,
divine
after
abilities.
more than 10
His
days
cultivation,
of waves caused
to
by
tell
the
you the truth,
establishment of the
even
heavenly
now,
demon sect,
I can't figure
the
it
crowd
out.
no longer paid
DUI
attention to the
Chiming,
heavenly
then
demon
T
sect
Shui Hong
after
Shun.
being probed
Back
by
then,
some cultivators.
you still put on airs in
Instead,
front of Senior
they
Brother
turned their
and
attention
thought that
to
you
the
were
Sky
amazing
Patrol City.
just because you
a
built
group
your
of
foundation.
nascent soul
Looking at it now,
cultivators
you were just a
gathered
joke
in
in
Sky
Senior
Patrol
Brother's
City.
eyes back
This
then.
was the opportunity
So what if I'm a
that
joke?
Zhang
He's your
Qinxiao
husband's
had
senior
been planning
brother.
all along.
Even if it's a bit
the development of the
embarrassing
matter
as your junior
was
brother.
also
I'm not
within
afraid
his
of losing
calculations.
face.
Even if the
Cui
leaders of the
Hongshun
Imperial
said
Thunder
with a
sect
smile.
and
Good.
other cultivators
DUI Chiming
did not
praised.
go to the Sky
Since
Patrol
husband
City.
thinks this
These
way,
accidents did
Senior
not
Brother's
stop him
planning
from
for you
establishing
wasn't in vain.
the heavenly
Xiao
demon
Hua had
sect.
indeed done a lot
Of course,
for Cui Hongshun.
if there was no such
So Xiao
accident
Hua
as him was worthy
that would
of
be
DUI
even better.
Chiming's praise.
Unfortunately,
Cui Hongshun
although
didn't
Zhang
hear
Qinxiao
any other meaning, was an ambitious
wait a moment.
and ruthless
Husband
person.
wants to see
it was
what
impossible
good
for
things
him
second
to
Senior
control
Brother brought
everything
back
from
in his
myriad
hands.
Thunder Valley.
20 days
Cui
after
Hongshun
issuing
said,
the order to
and took out a
establish the
storage
sect,
bag from his
he had
chest.
no choice but to
DUI
set off
Chiming
alone
didn't
from the
mind
heavenly
and
demon
said with a
sect in the
smile,
country of Shi,
when you and I
and
returned
head
to the
Imperial
southwest
Thunder sect that
of the
day.
Lian country.
Senior Brother
The
already gave
southwest
us
of the
a lot
Lian
of
country
things.
was a
Even
continuous
Senior Brother
stretch
was
of lakes.
stunned.
It was
Now,
the land of
there's no need
fish
to talk
and
about it.
rice that the people of the world
While
spoke
DUI
of.
Chiming was speaking,
This stretch of thousands of
Hongshun
miles
had already
was
opened
different
with
from the
storage
cold
bags.
river of the
He
Tianmen
couldn't help
Mountain.
but exclaim
the cold river
after
of the
scanning
Tianmen
it
Mountain
with his divine
was a large
large
section.
river that meandered through the
DUI
entire
Chiming
plain.
was stunned.
Many rivers nearby,
Senior brother, what's back?
rushed over,
You take a look for
and
yourself.
merged into the cold
Chui
river.
Hongshan
Thus
handed the
forming
storage
the
bag
land of water.
to DUI Chiming.
The land of water
took out
in
a few
Yin
more.
country was made up
DUI
of hundreds
Chiming
and
took
thousands
them curiously
of lakes
and
of
scanned
various
them
sizes.
with her divine
Each lake was
perception.
connected by small streams of water.
Her eyes flashed
Naturally,
with the same surprise.
the
as
lakes
she
varied
whispered,
in size.
Why? The
Why are
large
there
ones were
so many,
hundreds of
not
acres in
only
size,
that,
while the
Chui
small
Hongshan's
ones were
expression
tens
was
of feet in
strange
size.
as he handed
These
the
lakes
other
were not
storage
connected by a
bags to
large
DUI
river
Chiming.
like the cold river.
There's more in these
At the
few.
edge of the land of
Heavens,
fish and
did
rice.
senior brother go to
There was a
fight?
mountain range
DUI
that was neither
Chiming
tall nor
slapped her
short.
forehead.
It was
and
called
said
the
in
Chu Ling
confusion,
Mountain. We went
There
to
were
Sky
waterfalls
Patrol
on the
City
mountain
and almost various
lost our
mountain
lives in the
springs
hands
could be
of
seen
sword cultivators.
everywhere.
It was
Although we received a
beautiful
reward
and
in the
magnificent.
end, it was a
How-
famous
How
scenic
can it
spot
compare
in
to
the senior
southwest
brother
of the
things.
Yin country? How did he get so many
was the
spirit
highest
herbs?
peak
Flying
in the
swords,
Ling Mountain.
jade slips,
This heavenly
and Dharma
pillar peak
artifacts.
was also
Everything else
strange.
aside,
It was as
these
straight
spirit
as a
herbs
pillar,
and Dharma artifacts
extending out from the
are
middle of the
suitable
mountain
for
range.
use.
It appeared
Cui
so
Hongshan
abrupt
smiled
and
happily
unruly,
and said,
not to mention
"My
that it
myriad
did
thunder
not
valley
match the
doesn't
appearance of the
produce
water
spirit
village that
herbs
stretched
and has
for
very
thousands of
few
miles.
Dharma artifacts.
It also
Our
appeared out of
disciples
place
lack
when
these.
compared to those
With second
dwarf-like
senior
mountain
brothers
ranges
Dharma
within
artifacts.
100 miles.
I'm afraid it won't
Although
be a problem
Tianju Peak
to
wasn't
collect
the
another
highest
100
peak in the
or
Liang
80.
Kingdom, and it
Senior
wasn't
brother
even the top
didn't
10.
go to fight
Its
with sword
reputation was the most
cultivators.
resounding.
DUI,
Chiming nodded
every
and handed
spring
the storage
and
bag
autumn
to
there would always be a large number of
Senior
people
brother
from the secular
went to
world
collect the
who would bring their
storage
families
bags
here
of
to
sword
enjoy the
cultivators.
scenery.
The firewood and cotton
That's right.
that bloomed
Senior
in the
brother
spring
is
and
so
autumn was
stingy.
the focus of their
Cui
pursuit.
Hongshan laughed
The firewood
happily
cotton
and was about
a
to put the
mixture
storage
of
bag
red
away
and
when he
yellow.
suddenly thought of
It was
something
fluffy like
and turned to
ordinary
ask
cotton
DUI Chiming.
and didn't look
That's right.
particularly
Second senior
outstanding.
brother.
However,
Where's the storage
from top
bag
to
he gave
bottom,
you?
What's
Tianju
inside?
Peak was
Why are you
covered
being
in this
so
rare
secretive
firewood cotton
and not even
when
letting
it
your husband
bloomed?
know? The entire
He,
Tianju
this is a
Peak
little
was
secret
dyed
between
in
a
senior
reddish-yellow
brother and
color.
I. DUI Chiming smiled so
This reddish-yellow
widely that her
color
eyebrows
swayed
curved
in the wind
She
like
couldn't
a
help
burning
but
flame.
take out the storage
The
bag
entire
and
Tianju
wave it in
Peak
front of
was
Cui
covered in a
Hongshan.
layer
TSK,
of reddish-yellow
if you don't want to
flames.
say,
Then
it was like a
don't
burning
say.
sword.
How could Cui
piercing
Hongshan
into the
be
sky.
angry with Xiao
Everyone
Hua?
was curious.
He carefully put away the
Being in
storage
his
bags
flame-like
while
place,
DUI
it was as if they had
curiously
turned
opened the
into
storage
a
bag.
cluster of
Even though
flames.
she had already seen
Their
the other
entire
storage
body
bags
and
she
mind
couldn't
were
help
filled with
but have an
joy.
extremely
Right now,
strange
it was obviously
expression in
not
her
the time
eyes.
for the northern
It was
winds
as if
of
there was something
spring and autumn.
amazing inside.
However, the faint,
White,
rustling snowflakes
seeing
that blanketed
DUI
the
Chiming's
sky
expression
and covered the earth,
Cui Hongshan
landing on the
became even
pillar
more
of Heaven's
curious
Peak, and was about
the
to
scenery
sweep
that
his
was
divine
completely
perception
white
over.
had an
However, at that
indescribable
moment,
charm to it.
a sharp golden
However,
cord,
the mountain
divine
path of
perception,
Tianju Peak was
swept
covered in
over
snow
from the west
and was very
quickly
smooth.
put it away. Although the
Cui
mountain
Hongshan
path was
hurriedly
wide,
urged, "How could
DUI
ordinary
Chiming
people
was
climb
also
up the
startled.
mountain?"
However,
Fearing that
there
extreme
was always
joy
something
would turn into
unusual
sorrow
in this world.
She hurriedly
Halfway
put
up
the storage
Tianju
bag
Peak,
away.
there were two
Then,
people who were
the two didn't
slowly
dare to fly
climbing
forward
up the peak
and waited
Actually, it was a little
respectfully in
forced to
midair.
say that they were
In less than
climbing.
half a cup of
These
tea's
two
time,
people were
a
wearing
white-haired
strange
golden
clothes
core
that
old
covered
woman
their entire
flew
body.
over from
Their
the west
figures
like
and
lightning.
appearances
It
couldn't
was
be
the
seen.
famous awakening
Although their
thunder
feet landed on the
of
mountain
imperial
path,
thunder
the
set.
snowflakes
When
under their
Cui
feet
Hongshan
didn't move at
saw
all.
this old woman,
It was as if their
he
feet
couldn't
were
help but
floating
frown.
in the air.
The respect
above
on
the
his face
snowflakes.
became even
the
more
two people
intense.
walked slowly.
When the old woman came
as if they had
close,
walked for a
he
long
hurriedly
time
bowed
without
and said,
saying a word.
"Junior
The
Cui
falling
Hongshan
snowflakes
greets
also
all
landed on
Master
their
Zhang.
bodies.
Oh, why is this
However,
guy here?"
With a slight
DUI
bounce,
Chiming
they
was
fell
also
down
shocked.
in strange clothes.
She knew that this
Not a
person
single
was the
snowflake
hall
was
master
left
of the
on them.
Thunderous Thunder Palace's
Save me,
Thunderous
Suddenly,
Thunder Hall.
a heart-wrenching
Jinming Wan.
scream
Her
rang
husband,
out about
Cui
400 feet
Hongshan,
above the two
held a
of them.
position
Immediately
in the Thunderous Thunder
after,
Hall.
a
He was
black
responsible
shadow
for assigning
fell
odd
down from the
jobs
cliff on their
and
left
collecting
with a
medicinal
whoosh
pills
sound.
and spirit
Sigh, I
stones.
knew it.
In
These
such a
matters
snowy
involved
day,
the supply of
sitting on your
spirit
own
stones
Kong bed,
to various
drinking
places
wine
in the
looking at
Thunderous
the
Thunder
snowy
Palace.
scenery outside.
It was an
when you
important
have
position
nothing to do.
in the Thunderous Thunder Palace. Generally speaking,
When you have the leisure
it was the
to tease your
responsibility
wife.
of the
When you're
Thunderous
frustrated,
Thunder
you can
Palace's
grab your
direct
children and
disciples.
give them a few slaps.
However, because Cui
Isn't this
Hongshan
100
had
times
led the Thunderous
better than
Thunder
coming
Sect's
to this
first team
bullshit
this time,
Tianju
he was
Peak to
assigned this
die?
position. This voice was very strange. It was the voice of
Chapter
the person who had gone through the
27-22.
maze. Although
However,
Cui Hongshan
wasn't this the
was
voice
very
of the heavenly
happy
demon
when he
sex,
talked about his
Zhang
important position in
Qingxiao,
front of Xiao Hua?
who was extremely
The hardships he
popular in
faced
the
were
Dawn
only
Rain
known
Continent.
to himself,
As he spoke,
and only
Zhang
revealed
Qingxiao
when he
occasionally
occasionally
talked
talked
beside
him
him in front of
and
DUI
asked
Chiming.
curiously.
Therefore,
Haven't you always
DUI
liked to
Chiming
reach
knew
out and
that
Cui
save
Hongshan
people?
was having a
Why
hard
this
time
time
in Shualei
without
Hall?
waiting for him
In
to
fact,
finish
it was
speaking?
simple. The person
Shualei
beside Hall's various
immediately
interests had
moved
already
and
formed a
flew
pattern.
towards the cliff
Wouldn't
at the
myriad
side.
Thunder Valley's
Naturally,
interference
who else could it be other than
disrupt the
Xiao
internal
Hua?
situation?
TSK,
Who
I
knew
knew
how
it.
many people
It would be
were
strange if
eyeing
you could
Cui
endure it.
Hongshan's current
Zhang
position.
Qingxiao sneered.
Many of the bright
He did
Thunder
not
Hall's
stop
disciples
and continued to walk up the mountain with Chui Hong Shen. However, whether he raised his head or in the open, he saw a mountain range that was covered by craggy rocks. As the hall master of Shuo Lei Hall came from within the Zhenming Wan didn't have about any special actions against Chui Hong Shen. Xiao Huakai Chui Hong Shen had long since and landed behind Zhang Qingxiao. Chui Hong Shen wanted to curry favor with the Zhenming Wan. Don't tell me you sent him back. But after being rebuffed Zhang Qingxiao asked he gave up differently. Now that he saw the Zhenming without suffering a setback, how could he not complain? Xiao Hua also replied differently. Naturally, if we had saved him when he had just fallen, I'm afraid that he would have been lucky. The Zhenming Wan didn't intend to stop, but Chui Hongshan I would be able to give him an unforgettable lesson. Thinking about Chui Hongshan's battle Zhang Qingxiao, the Zhenming Wan looked at him. I didn't expect you to have grown up and know how to save master. This subordinate just finished how much older can you be than me? Brought Qiming Xiao Hua smiled. He
Cui
pointed at the
Hongshan
pillar of heaven's
said
peak
respectfully,
and said,
Moreover,
the
who
Zhun
knows
Ming
if this matter was done by him or
and
not?
said,
Who knows
however,
if this is a test
this
of our
old one
cultivation
has
level?
discussed with the
I
Vice
cannot
Hall
be
Master
careful
about the distribution
If it was done
of
by
spirit
him,
stones.
then I wouldn't be worried.
We still need to adjust it
Zhang
again.
Qingxiao
Wait
sighed.
until this old
Him
one
would
has
never
thought it
do
through
such a
before I tell
senseless
you.
thing.
After saying
People
that,
from the
the
devil
Jinming
realm
Wan
have
got up
always been
and was about to
straightforward.
fly away.
We definitely
Cui
won't use
Hongshan
any
felt
probing
bitter.
tricks.
He had racked his brain
enough.
for the distribution
Xiao
of spirit
Hua
stones,
sneered.
and
If they don't know how to
completed
probe,
it according
then what's the
to
matter
Zhun
with the
Ming
devil
Wan's
cultivators
wishes.
on Xiaoyu?
Now he had to do it all over.
What's the matter with you?
Truly,
What's the matter
but
with
what could
that,
he
him?
say? He bowed and
Sword
said,
cultivators
"Farewell,
can sneak
Hall
attack
Master.
the country.
DUI,
Why can't my
Qiming suddenly
devil sex
smiled
people?"
and said,
Zhang
Hall Master
Qingxiao
Zhun.
stopped
This
as he
junior
spoke.
heard that Zhun
At this
Ling
time,
just accepted
not
a
far
disciple
away,
with both
near the
lightning
innermost
and
part of the
fire
mountain
attributes.
path.
There were several
Congratulations,
trembling
senior.
men and
Well,
women
he's just a
squeezed
disciple.
together.
There's no
These
need to
men and
congratulate him.
women weren't cultivators.
Zhun Ling was
and they
the
were all in
youngest
their
female
teens.
disciple.
The
of
innermost
Zhun Ming
young
Wan.
man's hand
She was also the
tightly
disciple that the
grasping
Zhun
the
Ming
protrusion of the
Wan
stone wall
liked the most,
while the others were
for the
holding
Zhun
on
Ming
to each
Wan.
other.
It was
These
naturally
young
a
people
joyous
were wearing
occasion
thin
for the
clothes.
Zhun Ming Wan.
Although they were
However,
squeezed together,
how could the Zhun Ming
their
Wan
lips were
reveal
blue
its
from
joy
the
in
cold.
front of
Clearly,
DUI
they weren't
Qiming?
warm at all.
The vibrating
Instead,
bird
they
only
looked
paused for a
extremely
moment
miserable
before it was
in
about
this
to fly
snowy
away.
day.
Please
Seeing
wait a moment.
two people
Hall Master
suddenly
Zhun
emerged from the mountain
DUI
path
Qiming
amidst the falling
said
snow.
anxiously.
The few
Cui
youths were
Hongshan,
stunned at first.
who was standing at the
Then,
side,
a look of
was somewhat
surprise
puzzled.
flashed
He
across
truly
their
didn't understand
faces.
why DUI
However,
Qiming,
just as they were
was
about
so
to call
talkative
for
today,
help,
he
their
couldn't help
gazes
but
fell on the
shoot a
ground
glance
beneath the
at
two people's
DUI
feet.
Qiming. There was no
Afraid
trace
that
of
she
them
would
at all.
say something she
Looking at the
shouldn't.
feet of the
What
young
is it?
people,
The vibrating
several
cry
long snow
one didn't
marks were
stop
drawn
and
from the
didn't
top
give
of the mountain
DUI
path.
Qiming a chance
It was
at all.
extremely
She
messy,
said coldly,
and
this
there was
old
even a
one
long
still has
snow mark
important
that was
matters to
drawn
attend
into
to
a
in life.
cliff.
If
Wasn't
you have
left
any
behind
urgent
by the
matters,
person who
you can
fell
report them
just
to the
now.
Thunder Flash Hall.
Save me.
Hall Master.
A girl with a
DUI
childish face
Qiming
couldn't
hastily
help but
reached into
call
her
for
bosom
help.
and took
Her
out an
trembling
item.
lips
She
and
respectfully
teeth were
handed it
constantly
over
clattering
with a smile.
together.
When
It was
Hongshan
extremely
heard that
cold.
senior sister
Immortal
Zhenling had
Elder,
obtained a
save
fine
me.
disciple.
Immediately
He had already
after,
told his junior,
a boy of the same age,
gift for
also
that
called
child.
out.
However,
because my
this
myriad
child
stood
stood
outside
outside
the
group
didn't
of
have
people,
anything good,
and his hand
and
seemed to be a little
Hongshan was
stiff.
busy with the Thunder Flash Hall's affairs. He
As
couldn't
he
be
spoke,
distracted.
his whole
This
body
is a
trembled,
flying sword that
and his
belonged to
hand
a sword
actually
cultivator
loosened
from the home
Although
country.
it wasn't a big
This
deal that
junior
his hand
just
loosened,
obtained it.
his feet
Hongshan
also
said
slipped,
yesterday that
and
he
he
wanted to
slid
give it to
down the
senior,
slanted mountain
but
path
as she
towards the
spoke,
cliff.
DUI
Save
Qiming
me.
elbowed
A
Cui
hysterical
Hongshan.
cry could no longer
Although
be
Cui
suppressed,
Hongshan
and it came
didn't
out from this
understand.
young man's
He was
mouth.
still able to explain
The previous
himself.
restraint,
He immediately
hesitation,
said, "This
and
junior
doubt
was so
had long been
confused by the
abandoned in
distribution
this
of
moment of
spirit
life
stones that I
and
forgot
death.
about it long ago.
Sigh.
If not
Knowing
for
that this
Qiming's
heaven
reminder,
pillar peak
this junior
is so
wouldn't have
dangerous.
thought of it. I just came
As he
here
spoke,
normally." Cui
Xiao Hua
Hongshan
sighed
scanned the flying sword
with a slight
spiritual
movement of his
sense
body
and
He
smiled.
appeared beside
Although
you.
this flying sword
He raised his
isn't
hand
of the
and
highest
grabbed the
quality,
youth.
it still
However,
belongs to a
the
drawing
heavenly
sword
pillar
swordsman.
peak is
The sword
already
spirit
smelling.
inside
For the
hasn't
sake of
been
a bet,
erased. For the sake
So
of showing
it's an
off
excellent
and
gift
wanting to
for
win,
senior sister
you actually
Zhun
climbed
Ling's
up without
disciple.
saying a word to
The
your
best part
parents.
is,
If you
this
didn't meet
flying
this
sword
Xiao,
contains light.
wouldn't all of you have
If
lost
Hall
your
Master
lives?
refines it a
Yes.
little,
It will be an
yes.
excellent
Immortal
treasure.
Elder,
DUI
save
Qiming
me.
added. Immortal
The Thunder
Elder,
Flash sect
save me.
wasn't an expert
That young
in
man
refining
used his
weapons,
hand and his
flying
entire
swords
body
with a
to hug
specialty
Xiao Hua's
of the
arm.
Hun country.
He used
sword
all the
cultivators.
strength in his body.
Even the Changbai
afraid
sect
that
couldn't
this
compare.
life-saving straw
Many cultivators
would
from the
disappear
three
without a
cultivation
trace.
countries
Do all of you
yearned
know
to
that you
obtain
are
a
wrong?
flying sword
Xiao
from the
Hua's
Hun
arm was like
country
cast
in
iron,
this great
and
battle.
it didn't move at all.
Of course,
he easily
most of the
lifted up
flying
the young
swords that
man's
fell
thin
into the
body
hands of the
and
Dao
looked
sect
at the few young
cultivators
people.
were from a nurturing sword swordsman.
Yes, we know
Only
that we
a few
are
of them were
The
from
few
the
young
drawing
men
sword
scrambled
swordsmen.
to be the first
As for
to
the
cry
flying
out.
sword in
However,
DUI Qiming's
Xiao
hand,
Hua still asked
it was
with
from the
interest,
drawing
"Tell
sword
me,
swordsman.
do you know where you
Cui
are wrong?"
Hongshan and DUI Qiming couldn't tell.
But the vibrating cry
Krile Wan did.
Chapter 27 couldn't help but flash with
we shouldn't be so competitive.
What moved her even more
we knew that
was
this
what
Tianju
Qiming
peak
said.
is slippery
This
and
flying
snow
sword contained
and
the power
easily
of
get into
thunder
trouble
and lightning.
But with a
for
little
some
refinement,
silver for
it could become
to
a
fight for our
high-grade
dignity,
magic weapon.
we climbed
Not to
this
mention a
dangerous
disciple
peak.
who had just
A
joined
girl
the sect.
cleverly says,
Even if it was given to
what else?
Jinling or
Xiao Hua
herself,
says
it would
unrelentingly.
be suitable.
We
Of
shouldn't be
course,
so
the vibrating
impulsive
Krile
and bet
Wan
with those
wasn't
people.
as foolish.
A few people
as
clenched their
Xiang Yang
teeth
to
and
think
endure
that
this
this flying
cold,
sword
say.
was for Jinling's
Besides,
disciple.
young people.
Thus,
Xiao Hua
the vibrating
sighs,
Krile
just as
Wan
he is about to
smiled
open
and
his
said,
mouth. You're
the
all
innermost
very
youth who has been using
that
his
child
hand to grab
is only
the
at the
stone
fourth
wall.
layer
His
of
knuckles
Qi
are already
refined.
white.
How can he
and blood
control
is
this
seeping
flying
out from his
sword?
fingernails? He says,
Any
the
random
most
magic tool
damnable
would do.
thing is
Why
that
would
we
he
didn't
need such
think
a
of our
precious
parents.
item?
They must be panicking right
Master,
now,
you're right,
and must have begged their neighbors to
smile.
search for us. Although this
But they
child
definitely
has
didn't
just started
think
chi
that
refining,
we would be
under senior
so
sister
reckless
Zhongling's guidance,
and actually
he will
climb
soon reach
Tianju
foundation
Peak.
establishment.
Xiao
What
Hua
use
looks at
is
the
this
youth from
flying
top to
sword?
bottom.
Moreover,
The youth uses his
he has
hand
been
to
trying
grab
to
the
control
stone wall
flying swords
and has his
since
back
he was
facing
young.
Xiao Hua.
When he reaches foundation
Xiao Hua can
establishment,
only see his
he will be able to
delicate and
strengthen
pretty
his
face from
connection
side.
with the flying
However,
sword.
this
Although
child's
the clothes
future
are a bit
cultivation
shabby,
will
they are
definitely
washed
not
very
be
clean.
inferior.
He looks a
to
bit
senior
different from the
sister
other
Zhongling.
youths.
That's right.
I'll be counting on your
absolutely
auspicious words.
Xiao Hua nods
The vibrating
and
cry
says,
wand beams.
when a person is
DUI
alive,
Chiming's
there's
words
not
seem
only
to have hit
himself.
the bottom of her heart.
You also have your family by your
However,
side.
she still
You're the
shook her
flesh
head and
and
said,
blood of your family.
"This old one will talk
If you don't
to
protect
Zhongling
yourselves,
about this matter.
then you're letting
This
down
old
your
one
family.
appreciates your kind
Don't think that your
intentions.
parents don't know.
However,
that they have
this
already
item
gathered
is
at the
truly
foot
precious.
of Tianju
Myriad
Peak.
Thunder Valley
However,
also has
the mountain
disciples,
path is slippery
so
now.
it's better to give it
Even
to
if
them.
there's a large sum
When
of
DUI,
money,
Chiming
no one will
heard
come
this.
to die.
He knew that
Instead,
there was hope.
your
He
parents
took a step forward and bowed,
already preparing to come
Honorable
up
Hall
personally.
Master.
Although
Father,
this junior doesn't
mother,
have many
hearing
opportunities to
how
meet
can these
Hall
people
Master.
still hold back
I've long
the fear
heard
in their
Hongshin
hearts
speak of
and the
senior's
longing
noble
for their
character
family.
and
They all cry
unquestionable
out,
integrity.
and the tears
I
of the
truly
two
admire
girls flow
senior.
out.
This
Junior's
junior's
actions
Xiao.
today
Hurry up
are
and send him
indeed
down.
somewhat abrupt.
But this is
Qing
indeed a
Xiao
little
smiles
bit
and
of this
says,
junior's
if you don't send them
feelings.
off,
A little
their
bit of
parents
this
will really
junior's
come up.
admiration for
At that
senior.
time,
If
you thought to
senior
send
doesn't
them off.
accept it,
How can this junior
the youth
see
who is
senior
climbing
in
the stone
future?
wall hears
So it's
Zhang
like this,
Qingxiao's
seeing
words
that DUI
and
Chiming
heard
had
the calls
already
out.
handed the flying sword
Your
over to
Dao
her.
is Xiao.
The vibrating
I'm
cry
not.
Wan frowned
Xiao
and
Hua
said,
replies
since you're
without
so
any
considerate,
trace of politeness.
if this old one
You all
doesn't
come over
accept it,
here.
it
As
would
he spoke,
truly be
he waved his hand,
unreasonable.
and
This
several
old
youths
one can only
involuntarily
reluctly
flew
accept it.
towards Xiao
Yes,
Hua.
yes.
Taoist
Senior,
Master
please
Xiao.
understand this
The
junior's
innermost
painstaking
youth was
efforts.
still holding
DUI
on to the stone
Chiming was
wall,
overjoyed
unwilling
and
to let go as he
respectfully
called
handed
out.
over the
Today,
flying sword.
I
The
came
vibrating
to
cry
Tianju
Wan
Peak
differently
took the
from
flying
them.
sword.
This
and
kid
shook
has a
his hand
blood
slightly.
feud.
So
A
I came to
brilliant
Tianju
light
Peak to
flashed
look
on
for
the flying
senior
sword.
Why
And
would
the sparkling
Xiao Hua care
purple
about
lightning
it?
threads
His body flew
were
up
faintly
and fell down a
discernible
cliff.
within the flying sword.
Faintly. The two
Good.
girls
The
cried
vibrating
out in
cry
fright.
Wan couldn't
This
help
time he was
but
extremely
praise.
fast.
It looked up at
In just a
DUI
short
Chiming
moment
and
Xiao
said,
Hua
"This
flew
old
over
one
again.
thanks you
It's
on
quite
behalf
fast
of
this time.
Zhongling."
Zhang
No need to
Qingxiao
thank us.
seemed to
No
have
need to
become
thank
more
us.
talkative after
DUI
reaching
Chiming
Tianju
and
Peak.
Shui Hongshun
And
hurriedly
their
said,
parents have
"And
already climbed
this
up the
old
pillar
one
of Heaven
still
Peak.
has important
I only
matters to
sent
attend
them
to in the hall.
to the foot of the
I
mountain.
won't be staying here for
beside
long."
their parents.
The vibrating cry
And
Wan withdrew
Xiao
its
Hua
smile
said, and looked at
couldn't
Shui
help but be a
Hongshun.
little surprised.
Shui Hongshun,
Hee,
this
young
spirit
man
stone allocation
is
plan
indeed
you made
somewhat
earlier
interesting.
still needs to be
Zhang
carefully
Qingxiao
considered.
seemed to
If
have
you're free
also
tomorrow
discovered
afternoon,
something fishy
come to the Thunder
and
Hall
said with
and
a
discuss
smile.
it with us.
Let's go.
Yes,
Xiao
this
Hua
junior
shook his head.
understands. If it was a
This
normal
junior
day,
will
I would
definitely
have
be
helped.
there on
But
time
now,
tomorrow
we
afternoon.
can't even guarantee our
Shui
lives.
Hongshun hurriedly
How can we
bowed
care about
and
others?
said,
Following
dear
which,
Jiao
Xiao Hua walked up
the
mountain
vibrating
path.
cry
There are
Wan
those adults
said
watching from the
faintly,
left and right.
"You're the captain of the
You won't be able
thunder
to climb up
controlling
today.
sex.
Are we
First
still going to
team
continue?
in this Dao
Zhang
cultivator
Qingxiao
war."
asked with a
Your
smile
leadership
that
ability
wasn't a smile.
is obvious to all.
Your future in the Thunder
When
Hall
Xiao Hua heard
is
this,
also
he stopped a few
limitless.
feet away.
I wouldn't
turned his
dare.
head and said,
Everything is
"If you
thanks
feel that
to
there is
Lord
nothing
Hall
left in
Master's
this
guidance.
world,
If you
Shui
feel that you can
Hongshun
already
said
face
with a
him,
smile,
then we don't have
and
to
the
leave."
vibrating cry Wan
Actually,
nodded
when
slightly.
Xiao Hua said
He used the
this,
thunder
his
escape
heart was
technique
also
again
nervous
and quickly
when
disappeared.
he and Zhang Qingxiao
After the vibrating
flew
cry
over
Wan
and saw
figure
Tianju
disappeared,
Peak in front of
Shui
them,
Hongshun
Zhang
transmitted
Qingxiao,
his voice
who had always
to
been
DUI
fearless,
Wife,
actually felt fear
where did you
in
get
her
this
heart.
flying sword
She
from?
even suggested that they
used to me to
slowly
ask?
climb up the
Of course,
mountain from the foot
senior
of the
brother
mountain.
just gave it to
Xiao
me.
Hua really
DUI
didn't know
Chiming
what
said
this had on
proudly.
Zhang
But
Qingxiao.
Shui
To make
Hongshun was
Zhang
somewhat
Qingxiao,
puzzled.
how
Who
could he
was
give it to
almost at the
Shui?
late stage of
DUI
golden
Chiming
core,
smiled
have a
and
slight
said,
change in expression.
Senior brother
and
didn't
even
want me
her
to tell
body
you this too
slightly
early.
tremble.
However,
As if in front of him,
he didn't
Zhang
expect
Qingxiao
that
was
just as he
only a
turned
child
around,
that didn't even have
the
the
thing he
he
to trust
predicted
up
would
chicken.
happen. At the
Then
same
I won't
time,
hide it from you.
Xiaohua also understood that if he didn't come,
let's walk together
Zhang
and talk.
Qingxiao alone
Second
would
senior
probably
brother.
surrender
You mean?
upon seeing him,
Cui Hongshun
without even the
suddenly
courage to
understood.
resist.
That's right.
Therefore,
Senior
Xiaohua
brother knows
had no
that you
choice
come from a
but to come.
cultivation
Even without
aristocratic
Yiming
family.
and the
You
grand
have
universe
expertise in the
teleportation
ways
token,
of the world.
he still had to
And
come.
even in
He
communicating
was
with
currently
the Thunder
Zhang's
Palace.
Qingxiao's
DUI
mental
Chiming
support.
said with a smile.
The family behind
My
those
myriad
youngsters
Thunder
who
Valley has
rashly
always
climbed
been
up the
weak.
pillar of
We don't
Heaven
have
Peak.
any spirit
In this
stones,
world,
magic
there are
tools,
naturally
or
things that I
pills
am
to
reluctant
communicate with
to
others.
leave behind.
Senior brother Zhang
Especially left me a
Qingxiao
storage
looked at the
pouch.
snowflakes.
The things
floating
inside
in the
are
air,
for you
and then
and
looked
me.
at the abyss where
DUI
the snowflakes
Qiming
fell.
pulled Cui
severed a
Hongshan's
smile.
hand and
In the
explained
future,
as they flew.
there will be even
The
more
sunset
things that
cast
I am
their
reluctant
shadows
to
on the
leave
ground,
behind,
elongating
in this
rain
dawn
continent.
And the gratitude
But right now,
in Cui
I have to
Hongshan's
first walk
heart
this
was
path
100
and
times
not fall
longer
into
than
the
this
abyss.
shadow.
As she
Speaking
said
of
that,
which,
Zhang Qinxiao turned to look at
Thunder
Xiaohua
Peak and said
some of
with
the
a smile,
worries in his heart.
I have no choice but to
After all,
walk this dangerous
knowing
path,
that everyone
but
in
you are
Myriad
really
Thunder
good
Valley was
and safe
insisting
and
on
sound
joining
was
the fun.
better than anything
If you fall
else.
down yourself, don't
Although
blame
helplessness had been in
Ha
seclusion
ha.
for many
It's still
years,
not certain who
and
will fall
hadn't
down.
come out.
Xiaohua
laughed heartily.
understood that
His figure
helplessness
suddenly shot
also had
straight
the
up
inner
into the
core
sky,
of a
and
male
all the
lightning
snow was
beast in
scattered
his
by his
body.
figure.
Furthermore,
Even if I fall
helplessness
down,
had always
I
been
would definitely
stable.
pull someone down.
If he wasn't 90% sure, he definitely wouldn't have gone
Zhang
into seclusion.
Qinxiao also
It was only a
shouted,
matter of time,
and her figure also
before
flew up
helplessness
into the
came
sky
out
with
and
Xiaohua.
condensed his inner core.
The peak of the pillar of
However,
Heaven Peak was
some of the old
naturally
worries
not
were
flat,
gone, and there were even
new
some
worries
abrupt rocks
surged
and
in his
stone
heart.
spikes.
The first one to
all
bear the
over.
brunt.
Moreover,
naturally
this peak was
Shueshue.
already extremely
Xiaohua
cold,
really didn't understand
and cold
why
winds would
Shueshue
occasionally blow
was so
past.
rash.
Only a
As a
few sharp
disciple of
thorns
Sun
grabbed
Ming
onto the
in
gaps
Sun
between
Lei
the
Palace,
rocks,
and
also
only
had a
then was
lightning
Xiaohua
beast
able to find a trace
she only
of
needed
azure
to cultivate
within
this
step
pale
by step.
white color.
What late-stage
Xiaohua's
foundation
two
establishment,
hands
what
slightly
golden
clenched
core,
into fists,
although he didn't dare to be 100%
and he had already released
sure
his divine
of reaching
sense,
nascent soul.
scanning the
He still had a
several hundred
50%
feet
chance
around the peak.
If she
Other
really
than the
cultivated
wind and the
like
drifting
Shueshue,
snowflakes,
there
she
was
would
not
definitely be able to
person,
catch up to his cultivation
Zhang
pace.
Qinxiao,
But her
who was
future
behind
progress
Xiaohua,
would definitely be limited.
Also, clearly,
this kind of
heaved a
attitude
sigh of relief.
didn't feel like
and
it was
even said
Shueshue's
somewhat
nature.
deliberately, "Looks like
I still
and with
came
such
early.
wild thoughts."
However,
how could he notice
before
Zhang
Zhang
Qinxiao's
Qinxiao's
words
words
fell?
fell?
She also
saw
didn't
a
know
faint
that
black
Xiang
shadow
Zhili's
appear in the
matter had
distance,
already been
and it
placed on his
flew
head.
towards the two of them.
Although this black shadow was still very far
Chapter
from the pillar of Heaven Peak,
27-23.
Zhang Qinxiao,
While his imagination
and
was
Xiaohua
running wild,
were already on high
Xiaohua
alert.
suddenly
The moment the
thought
black
of Fairy
shadow
Hong
appeared,
Xia.
he came
two
to
of
a
them
realization,
discovered it,
and then
their
smiled
divine
bitterly.
sense swept
Needless
over
to say,
without
with
hesitation.
Shueshue's
And,
competitive character,
as expected,
she must feel
it
that
was
her
this fellow
cultivation
who
was
revealed
inferior to Fairy Hong
Zhang
Xia,
Qinxiao's
would not look
divine
good in
sense
front of Xiaohua.
swept over the black
That's why she wanted to
shadow.
catch up,
And she
when she saw
immediately
Fairy
gnashed her
Hong
teeth
Xia
and said,
"She would not
I should have
lose
killed
to
him
Fairy
long
Hong
ago."
Xia."
Seeing
In
that
terms
the
of
black
cultivation,
shadow
women,
was
whether
Imei,
the secular
who was
woman,
rushing over,
a female
Xiaohua
cultivator,
withdrew
or a
his divine
female
sense.
swordsman.
He
I'm
had seen
afraid
Imei
they all
once
have a
when he was
competitive
training in the
heart.
Foundation
Xiaohua
establishment realm.
thought to himself
At that time,
as he took out
he and
a
Zhang
science
Qinxiao
had
had
yet to recognize
and casually popped
Now
into
that he
his
was
mouth.
already in the gold
After this
core
battle,
realm,
I have
how
to
could
find
he
an
still
opportunity
put
to let
Imei,
Shueshue,
who was only in the
Fairy
Foundation
Hong
establishment
Xiaomi.
realm. The
In
two
his
of them have
eyes,
already heard of each other for a long time.
You should say this to yourself.
But they have never mentioned
Xiaohua
anything
sneered.
about meeting each other.
If this fellow was
they
not
must have some
useful,
grudges in their hearts.
I'm afraid you
I can
would have
take
already
this
killed him.
opportunity to
He,
eliminate them.
Zhang Qinxiao
He,
rubbed her
this
hands
young
and
master's
laughed.
happy life.
I wanted to
should
rope
be
him in,
beckoning,
and
even
Xiaohua,
gave him the position of
Zhang
the first
Qinxiao's
vice
voice
sect leader
sounded from
of
the
the
side.
heavenly demon
Oh,
sect.
what's the matter?
Even I had
Xiaohua
always been
sat on the
showing
flying
weakness
boat.
in front of him.
Most of the time,
making him
he was
feel that
meditating
the
with his
true
eyes
sect
closed.
leader.
of
Zhang
the heavenly demon
Qinxiao did
sect.
not pay attention
But I
to
didn't
him.
expect
He did not know
that
why
all
she
of these
suddenly
could
woke
not
up.
be compared
You
to
don't
him,
seem to be
Mom.
meditating.
When she mentioned him,
Zhang Qinxiao frowned and
Qinxiao,
asked, who had already
"Who said?"
recovered her calm.
Xiaohua
became
raised his
cautious
eyebrows
again.
and tilted his neck.
She released her
I'm
divine
comprehending
sense
the
again.
wonders of
And
this
not only did it
soul
sweep behind
execution
Imei,
ring,
but it also
impossible.
swept the surroundings
Zhang
of the pillar
Qinxiao
of
said
Heaven Peak.
impolitely.
There's no need to
Look
look
at your wretched
There's no one
smile.
nearby.
How can you be
no matter if it's a
comprehending the
cultivator
secret
or a
technique?
demon general?
Why is it impossible?
Xiaohua whispered.
Haven't you heard that
Humph.
the wonders of
How
the
would you know the
secret
methods
technique
of the demon
make
realms,
people
demon
scratch
generals?
their ears?
Zhang
and cheek
Qinxiao
happily?
was still not
Xiaohua's
at ease.
face was not red.
My concealment
He even
technique
stretched out his
is
hand
not worth
and scratched
mentioning
his
in
ears
a
a
few
few
times.
times.
So powerful. Don't
When
think that people
Xiaohua
are
heard
fools.
this,
His
Zhang
heart jumped
Qinxiao
even more,
sneered
and
asked
he
again,
unconsciously
"Haven't you
opened
already
his Dharma
condensed your
eyes
core?
again.
Why
Ever
are you
since
still
the
taking
lightning
science
tribulation
spirit pill?"
Xiaohua, according to the
increasingly
practice
felt
of the Tao
that there was
sect,
something wrong
you should
with
take
the Dharma
clearly
eyes.
pill now. It was like the naked I was
Xiaohua
blurry,
understood that
and there
this
were often
clearly
some
pill
places that he
was
could
an
not
ordinary
see
pill
clearly.
used by early
However,
gold core stage
Xiaohua
cultivators.
himself did
He
not
should
know the
indeed take
origin
this
of his
pill.
Dharma eyes.
However,
and how to use it.
Xiaohua
So
glanced at
naturally,
Zhang
he could
Qinxiao
not
and
find the
said,
source.
"I'm happy."
After
So
Xiaohua
what?
looked at it again,
I still have some
he
science
really
spirit
didn't see
pills in my
anything.
storage bag.
Only then did he
It's a
close
waste
his
not to
Dharma
use them
eyes and watch
Zhang
I thought you returned to
Qingxiao
the Imperial
inspected
Thunder Sect
over and over
ask
again,
your junior marshal
seeing
brother
that
to give
Ming
you
had
clearly
already
pill
flown close,
and other medicinal
and
pills
after
used
Ming's
by
divine
early
scent
Jindan
swept over.
cultivators.
Zhang
In the end,
Qingxiao
it wasn't.
stopped her useless
Now that you have
inspection,
just condensed
got
your
rid of the
golden core,
Mimi.
you should
and
take some
flew in front of
clearly
pills
Xiaohua
to
stabilize your
welcome
golden
Ming.
core realm.
Greetings,
and stabilize your
Secmaster.
newly
When
condensed
Ming
golden
saw
core.
Zhang
Don't be
Qingxiao
stingy.
after Mimi
Once
was
your
removed,
Jindan
his
collapses,
face showed a look
it'll be
of
too late for
understanding.
regrets.
And he flew
Although
in front of
Zhang
Zhang Qingxiao
was
was
concerned,
unhurriedly
her words
and
didn't
bowed.
sound concerned at all. She even seemed to be gloating.
However,
Is
looking
this
at his
young master
indifferent
poor
appearance, It seemed that as Zhang wouldn't whisper his situation to He really did not put Zhang Qingxiao, said snappily, the sect master. Not only did I not take the clearly pill, Vice Sect I also don't have the gene. Why did you come to the Tianju Peak to cultivate? Zhang Qingxiao, how is that possible? Gloomily. Didn't I give you some now is the critical moment of my heavenly demon? Zhang Qingxiao said in disbelief. Sect master those aren't not here. Xiao Hua stretched out his first Vice Sect master. You have to give me all the gold core stage. Should be in charge of the affairs cultivation man country. Damn it. Why did you run here? You're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Puzzled. Not a disciple of my heavenly demon sect master knows. Zhang Qingxiao waved her hand to communication talisman. Go back and ask your master for it. At this point, after saying Meng's gaze fell on she looked at Zhang Luer and he whispered, I don't know who this person behind sect master. We're about to reach the transmission array. This is this sect master's trusted aide. What about this sect master? Just bring him along. There's nothing shameful about it. Zhang Qingxiao waved her hand and asked curiously. Are you sure you want this Imeng let him wear camouflage clothes? Imeng said coldly. Damn it. You're the one who let Zhang Luer get into the spirit storage Zhang Qingxiao and now you're also the one who let him wear camouflage clothes. Are you the sect master of the heavenly demon sect? Zhang Qingxiao said angrily. Sect master, do you have any idea? You were so awe-inspiring. At first I thought it was inconvenient to bring Luer along. But after thinking about it, clapped his hands, who would care about took out a magic slip similar to the one Zhang Qingxiao showed. Let's just bring him along and say, do you have a brain? Lord Ji Zhang Qingxiao scolded. Look at Luer's posture. Is this a Taoist spell? Although the Buddhist sect has been destroyed by the Taoist at this point, if someone really sees that it's a Buddhist sitting posture, looked at Zhang Qingxiao. Are you asking for trouble? Just a Xiao It's better to be safe than Zhang Qingxiao suddenly felt like he had lost his soul. This is really rare. His eyes isn't the heavenly demon sex, and he almost blurted out, always fearless. Where's my lord? Now what did he say so much? After speaking, Xiao Hua Zhang said with an exaggerated expression. He narrowed his eyes and but this is Zhang Luer. He looked at Imeng, Junior sister's son, and said coldly, Zhang Qingxiao, if you have something to say, it's your responsibility to make him like this. Don't be so long-winded, but it's also my fault. However, when I can't let Zhang Luer he waved his hand and put away the magic. Besides, he smiled and said, it's rare to see Lord Sect Master angry. Not to mention that Zhang Luer is still a child who hasn't cultivated yet. He's in such a situation didn't feel any pressure in front of Imeng. Second senior brother said, "You're so although this sect master is very modest." Xiao Hua scratched his head and usually doesn't get angry. I'll put Luer into the spirit storage bag. This sect master is being played like a monkey. Zhang Qingxiao this sect master will naturally get angry. There's no need for you to take the spirit storage bag. Ha ha! Sect master Zhang, you are indeed insightful. Xiao Hua heard these words are extremely well said. This matter suddenly stared blankly. Then he clapped his hands responsible for taking care of since you know that this guarantee that disrespectful to sect Zhang Qingxiao was Lord Sect Master will get angry. To be honest, however, he had never thought of what if someone doesn't listen to Lord Storage words. It was simply a fantastic idea, but I guarantee that he'll be fine. Lord Ji Peng Xiao Hua Zhang Qingxiao's expression changed that day. A few disciples of my Imperial Thunder Sect. I put them in there for a few days. What do you mean by this, old man? You must be careful. Imeng's face revealed Zhang Qingxiao knew that Xiao Hua wouldn't speak. He glanced at the motionless Xiao Hua. He wouldn't casually take Zhang This old man only wants to ask, but he still warned him as usual. Do you still remember why Lord Ji Peng brought you here? There was no trace of the heavenly demon sect leader's coldness that didn't care. Have you already forgotten that you are a member of the demon realm? Xiao Hua took out the spirit storage face was slightly put his arm around Jiang, but he still reluctantly scolded. He smiled this is our sect good nephew, come in. When Lord Zhang Luer's figure disappeared, this sect master Xiao Hua even waved the spirit storage. What does this have to do with you? A few times. Naturally, Zhang Qingxiao has nothing to do with this old man. Zhang Luer is your nephew. Still smiling, not your nephew. However, this old man still wants to. Xiao Hua scratched his head and said, "What is going on with the difference between a nephew and Yellow Flower Ridge? Go back and ask Zhang Qingxiao's eyes." Zhang Qingxiao patted the flying boat, and her body involuntarily rushed into the air. But looking at Imeng flew into the distance. He was still calm. Xiao Hua glanced at Zhang, didn't move at all, and his mind as if he had nothing to fear. Naturally, he wouldn't know about Zhang Luer into the spirit storage bag. Zhang Qingxiao, the spirit storage bag was just a cover. Forcefully suppressing the killing intent in Zhang Luer's body with his mind. And what a coincidence! Put him into the space. Imeng answered after the thunder tribulation and the core condensation. This old man, the range of Xiao Hua's divine thought, happened to meet a disciple of my heavenly demon sect, who I had the range of the space had naturally expanded a lot. He was actually, according to Xiao Hua's rough estimate, This old man had no choice but to ask about him. However, did you kill by Xiao Hua didn't have full confidence in this number. Suddenly realized something. He had a vague idea of this number. If he doesn't answer this old man's question, it means that he's being disrespectful would wake up at any time. The vice. So he naturally didn't dare, according to the rules of my heavenly demon sect, nor did he. It's not a big deal for the spiritual to attack him. He only sent him to a remote place far away. Besides, this old man was big enough that for a child who had never cultivated before, it was just that he was almost impossible to touch. Fell from even if Zhang Luer Zhang Qingxiao's face turned extremely ugly. In the space from by Zhang Luer, this old man didn't get anything. He was very calm. Yimeng looked at Zhang Qingxiao. Xiao Hua's mind looked at him for a moment. This old man only knew that by Tianfeng was going to Yellow Flower. Only then did he withdraw. This Yellow Flower Ridge. What Xiao Hua didn't notice was that this old man is very curious, which hadn't moved at all before. You said that my heavenly demon sect already has a foundation. After flying for a while, the flying boat landed at the edge of a small town. Zhang Qingxiao didn't say why are you going to Yellow Flower Ridge? Flew down from this sect leader's action with a shake of her hand. Do I need to tell you the reason? She put on a camouflage. Yes, this old man thought. Xiao Hua naturally, even if this old man wanted to ask Zhang Qingxiao, Lord sect leader would Zhang Qingxiao. So keep the flying. This old man had to go check it out. Followed behind him. And you went to Yellow Flower teleportation array. Zhang Qingxiao's eyes were already shuttled back and forth between teleportation. This old man hasn't been to every time they came out from the teleportation array. Yimeng shrugged. Zhang Qingxiao would definitely ask if this old man went to take wouldn't Lord sect leader out of the spirit storage. Of course, it's not that this old man didn't want to go. No matter if the flying boat this old man went to Yellow Flower Ridge, he had to see with his own eyes. I've already discovered some of Lord sect leader's secrets. Second senior brother. What do you know? Just let Zhang Qingxiao cross his arms in the spirit storage and seem to have thrown caution to the wind. In the end, was still smiling. Xiao Hua was a little annoyed. He said, "I guarantee that he'll be fine." Actually, it's nothing. Zhang Qingxiao. This old man just found out that unless I'm not by your side, don't think of putting Zhang Luer in a small sect called Shanghuaming. All right, this small sect only has 3.5. Just as he was about to sit down, and one of them is called Zhang Qingxiao frowned. And the flying boat that Zhang Qingxiao doesn't seem to be the same person as Lord Sect quietly. He's far from being as handsome and charming as Lord Sect leader. Was like a thin layer of silk. Zhang Qingxiao's eyelids twitched, and he raised his black chi. But when he saw that Yimeng was still, it didn't change into strange. Didn't care about his actions. He stopped, and the rune shape was somewhat like a talisman, actually, but also somewhat like a green Qingxiao has the same name as there were even pictures of demonic beasts. Even if Lord Sect leader half a meal's worth of cultivation. The black cheese suddenly stopped again and was absorbed. This old man found out that Shanghuaming's disciple who hasn't entered the sect is called Xiao Hua. Zhang Qingxiao only said one sentence before her figure disappeared into the void. This Xiao Hua has the same name, so mysterious. Xiao Hua, the Imperial Flower Sect. Xiao Hua muttered a few times. Yimeng's tone was a little cold. That spirit-punishing even vital if Xiao was Hua indeed a little troublesome to use, Hua, the Imperial and it wasn't as easy as Xiao Hua had thought. If he didn't follow the spirit-punishing vital light's cultivation method, this Xiao and just use the Imperial Thunder Sword Gourd's cultivation method, the Xiao Hua who got the swords. Shinku and teleportation. It couldn't be said that the power of these two flying swords wasn't enough. But Lord Sect leader still punishing vital light's cultivation method, right? The power of these two old men to go to Meng Nation to find Xiao Hua. Zhang Qingxiao Hua himself already had two flying swords, not knowing what he was thinking. Naturally. There's no need for this old man doesn't care if Lord Sect leader spirit is the same person as this Zhang as long as there's a living creature with spiritual intelligence. So what if this Zhang Qingxiao is that Zhang? Damn it, this tone is really not small. Doesn't Lord Xiao Hua was comprehending while sighing with emotion. It's normal for his subordinates, just as he was thinking. Hundreds and the primordial spirit in Xiao Hua's space. Moreover, Lord Sect leader has racked his brains for this heavenly demon sect. Working hard every day. Chapter 27. This old man has seen this when Xiao Hua's it's also for this heavenly demon sect. He immediately understood that the sword controlling Lord Sect of the primordial spirit. However, which hadn't improved after this old man found out about Shanghuaming. Finally had a major shockingly discovered that Shanghuaming had disappeared from Yellow Flower tribulation in a single night. Xiao Hua was has some doubts. However, if 100 Herbs while he was pleasantly surprised to take action, Xiao Hua was also big, aren't their appetites too good? Because now this primordial spirit, no one knows how. Well, perhaps it could no longer be called exterminated pure primordial. Even this old man couldn't find any results. The primordial spirit was just a small strand. However, This
faintly
old man
discernible,
also
without
doesn't want to
any
investigate,
fixed shape,
because whether
could only be
Shang Huaming
perceived
existed
by Xiao
or
Hua's
not has
mind.
nothing to do
But now
with
the
this
primordial
old man.
spirit
This
had
old
already
man's purpose in
condensed,
coming to the three
as if
kingdoms
it was a
has
kind of
nothing to
substance.
do with this
Although
sect.
this substance was
Yin
still a
Ming's
small
voice
dot
became colder.
in Xiao Hua's mind.
However,
There was
this old man
actually
has
an
no
illusory
choice
outline,
but to ask
and this
Lord
outline
Sect Leader.
faintly had
Since
the shape
Lord Sect
of a
Leader
person.
knows
Of
the
course,
whereabouts
this
of
shape
Xiao
was
Hua of the
extremely
Imperial Thunder
faint,
Sect,
and the
and
appearance
also
couldn't
knows
be
that the
seen.
Chinquan
Since
teleportation
this primordial
token
spirit
is in
had
Xiao
such a
Hua's
change,
hands,
Xiao Hua naturally
Lord Sect
didn't
Leader
dare to
even
neglect
has
it.
some connections.
He looked at the
with
two
Xiao Hua.
primordial spirits
Why?
in the sky.
Did you throw
Dao,
Lord
starry
Ji
sky,
Peng's matter to
and
the
the back of
karma
your
hand?
mind?
Don't
These
you
two
know the
primordial
true
spirits
meaning of
didn't
this
grow as
bill
fast as the
Chinquan
one
teleportation
comprehending
token?
the technique.
At this point,
And their shapes
although
were also
Yi Ming
different.
didn't point out
Above the
Zhang
sky,
Qingxiao's
Dao's
true
starry
identity,
sky,
he had already
the core
treated
looked like
the
a star,
Zhang Qingxiao
faintly
as the
shining
same person.
in the faint,
Immediately,
almost invisible
Yi Ming
shadow
turned to
was
look at
also
Xiao
in the
Hua
shape of
and
star
said,
flame.
Moreover,
Inside the karma hand,
Shang Huaming
there
Xiao
seemed to be a
Hua
chain
also has
and
a
also seemed to be a
mysterious
ring,
background.
but it was
when he was in
Shang
Shang Huaming,
clearly.
he was just a boy
Its
who
shadow was
hadn't
also
even
in the shape
level
of a
3
big hand
of the Qi refining
similarly
stage.
faint and invisible.
After he came to the Imperial
Strange.
Thunder Sect,
Could this be
his
the
cultivation
power of the
sword?
lightning?
According to the
tribulation?
latest battle report,
During the lightning
not only did he make a
tribulation,
lot of military
several primordial
exploits,
spirits were
but he
sent
even
into the
killed
heart sword by
Qinjian.
Xiao Hua.
His military
Xiao Hua
exploits
himself
are
was
second
focused
only
on
to
passing
Li's
the
zone
lightning
bow
tribulation
of the Utopia
so he didn't
faction.
pay attention
Lord
to the
Sect
changes
Leader,
in these
don't
primordial
tell me.
spirits. Now that there was a
You didn't
change,
contribute to
it was
this?
naturally
This has
due
nothing
to
to
the
do with
lightning
me.
tribulation.
Zhang Qingxiao
The lightning
said
tribulation
coldly,
is
I
beneficial
really don't
to little
understand.
white dragons.
This is an old story from
It also
decades
said
ago.
that it was
Where did you
beneficial to
find
the
it?
primordial
In
spirits,
this world,
comprehending
whether
the
it's the Xiao
Xiao
cultivation
technique,
millions
in
of
the
Meng
mysterious
mountains,
dark
or
clouds.
even the demon realm.
So these primordial
if you don't want
spirits
people to know,
should also be
don't do in the
harmless.
first place.
Xiao
People
Hua
leave their
thought,
names and
urging the
geese
primordial
leave
spirit.
their voices.
And while continuing
as long
to
as you have
comprehend
the heart,
technique,
you can
he
always
actually
find
began
out.
to cultivate
Yi Ming
the
said
medicine
proudly,
field with those
then turned to
tireless
Xiao Hua
puppets
and
said,
Xiao Hua,
"Don't you
since
think
that the
so,
primordial spirit's
fellow cultivator
initial
Xiao Hua?"
unfamiliarity gradually
That's right.
grew,
Xiao Hua
and even had a
long wanted to
familiar
get rid of
feeling
the
that he was
Ming.
working in the field.
When he heard Yi
Xiao Hua
Ming's
smiled.
words, in
He
this
tore
way,
the Mi Ming away.
isn't it just
and
another
said
me working
coldly,
in the space?
In this world,
After I familiarize
dead
myself
can't
with the
reveal
control
secrets.
of these invisible
I'm
hands
afraid
and
you're
feet,
really tired
won't I
of
be able to
living.
use the technique
You,
next?
Xiao Hua?
When
This
Yi
is
Ming
bad.
saw Xiao
Damn it,
Hua's true
this primordial
face,
spirit
he couldn't
of
help
yours
but be
stunned.
truly.
I
Doesn't need
seem
to
to have seen
cultivate
you somewhere
Dao techniques
before.
anymore,
As
right?
Yi Ming said
Xiao
this,
Hua suddenly
he looked at
thought
Zhang
of another
Qingxiao
problem
and
suddenly
who
realized
cares?
something. Xiao Hua
so that's how it
immediately
is.
laughed. Even if I want to cultivate, wouldn't
When
I
we
be
were
able
at
to achieve
Lingpei Mountain
twice
Villa,
the result?
Lord
Lord
Sect
Sect
Leader
Leader
had
already
space.
hidden this matter from me.
Immediately
Lord
after,
Sect Leader's
Xiao
shrewdness
Hua
is
hurriedly
really
withdrew
deep.
his consciousness
However,
and
Zhang
followed the
Qingxiao's
soul
figure
mark of the
moved
Dharma
slightly
eye
and began
into
to
the
circle to the
mysterious
other
dark
side of
clouds.
Yi Ming.
When he saw the
Forming
scene
a
in the
triangle
sky,
with
he couldn't
Xiao
help
Hua.
but be dumbfounded.
Lord
Of
Sect
course,
Leader wants
in the
to
current
keep me
heaven
here.
ring of
Yi
Qi,
Ming wasn't timid,
whereas the
and
little
a
white
trace of a
dragon
smile appeared
and
on
the
his
wisp of
face
his
as he
primordial
said
spirit.
indifferently,
Motherfucker,
"That's right.
Did these two
Zhang
things
Qingxiao
disappear
said
into
calmly.
thin air?
Junior Marshal
Xiao
brother
Hua remembered
Xiao
has
that when
already
he
said
sent
it
little
very
white
well.
dragon
Only
and
the
his
dead
own
can
primordial
keep
spirits
secrets.
into the
You know
mysterious
so
dark
much,
clouds.
yet you still want
he
to
didn't
leave
check
this
carefully
Tianju
at all.
Peak?
Even
Ha, ha,
Xiao
ha.
Hua's
I naturally
own
want to
primordial
leave.
spirit
Yi Ming
didn't enter
laughed
the dark
loudly.
clouds. This heavenly demon
Impossible.
sect has
Xiao
just
Hua
been
frowned as he
established.
looked around at
How
the
can it be
empty but
established
bright
without
sky?
the sect leader's guidance? I'm the first vice sect leader of the heavenly demon sect. In the absence of a sect leader, it's naturally up to me to lead the heavenly demon sect. I understand now. Zhang Qingxiao suddenly understood. So, that Lord Ji Peng's MO bamboo slip was planned by you all. Lord Ji Peng. He didn't even come to the cultivation 3 kingdoms. Chapter 27-29. Ha ha, of course. If Lord Ji Peng were here, would you still be standing here obediently? Yi Ming laughed. You've had a problem with me for a long time, but you didn't dare to do anything because the Heavenly Demon Sect hasn't been established yet. Now that the Heavenly Demon Sect has been established, I'm no longer of any use to you. Is that why you want to get rid of me? Zhang Qingxiao said coldly. When Yi Ming heard this, he shrugged and said with a smile, this old man didn't want to get rid of you so early. After all, Qing Fengmin and the others have been planning this heavenly demon sect for many years,
others, but they never realized it. Only you can establish the Heavenly Demon Sect. You're indeed very useful. In fact, in my plan, you can always be the sect master of the Heavenly Demon Sect until Lord Ji Peng and the others arrive. It's a pity that you're walking further and further away from Lord Jipeng. Furthermore, your cultivation is becoming increasingly powerful. If this old man doesn't act now, I'm afraid that you'll kill this old man before I even do anything, especially when I realize that you no longer have Lord Jipeng in your heart. If I let you develop, when Lord Jipeng arrives, I won't be able to answer to him, even if I'm still alive. So, you used Lord Jipeng's demonic slip to order us to establish the sect first and then deceived us to come here? Zhang Qingxiao asked coldly. Ha! Sect Master, you're wrong. Yimeng clapped his hands and took out the demonic slip. He smiled and said, "This was given to me by Lord Jipeng. It's used to order you, evil creature. However, I didn't take it out because I've been watching your performance all this time." You, could it be that you've already... Zhang Qingxiao's expression changed abruptly. That's right, Yimeng sneered. Although you're good at concealing yourself and hid the aura of the demon realm in your body, I have Lord Jipeng's demonic slip. How can I not know your origin? So what if you erase the demon soul imprint? Do you think your contract with Lord Jipeng will disappear in front of the demon god? Upon hearing the word contract, Zhang Qingxiao trembled involuntarily, as if she was extremely afraid. Since you have this demon token, why did you ask me to come to this heaven pillar peak? Zhang Qingxiao's teeth began to chatter. Ha! Do you still need to say it? Yimeng looked at Xiao Hua proudly and said, if he wasn't at Tianju Peak, if he wasn't close to the great Dao cultivation strategy, would this junior brother Xiao of yours be able to appear in time? Could he send the Grand Universe teleportation token over? Ha ha ha, he has benefited a lot from you. When you are in danger, how can he not help you? Good plan. Good plan. Ha ha. I always thought that I had you in the palm of my hand, but I never thought that you were actually a poisoned thorn. Zhang Qingxiao laughed like a madman. That's right. Zhang Qingxiao had been enduring silently in front of Yimeng. She had thought that she was the master of the matter, but in the end, she realized that what she had done was just a farce. Yimeng had already seen through it. In fact, Yimeng's arrogance and conceit was just arrogance and conceit to begin with. How can this old man compare to Lord Jipeng? Yimeng said with a smile. This was all his orders. Hearing the mention of Lord Jipeng, Zhang Qingxiao's body trembled again. Clearly, she was extremely afraid. Xiao Hua had been silent all this while. Seeing this scene, he sneered and said, Yimeng, the three of us will definitely fight today. Either you die or I die. This young master has a question that I really want to know. I wonder if you can answer it. This young master? This old man? Ha ha! As expected of senior brother and junior brother. All of you are extremely arrogant. Yimeng laughed loudly and said, Go ahead and ask. See if this old man wants to answer. It's very simple. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the Grand Universe teleportation token. He asked indifferently, This item is merely a Dharma token used for long-distance teleportation arrays. Is it that important? Is it actually worth your scheming? Oh, you are really making things difficult for this old man with this question. Yimeng glanced coldly at Zhang Qingxiao, whose body was slightly bent, and said, In the entire Dawn Rain continent's 3 cultivation countries, I am afraid that only this old man knows the secret. It's just that this involves the arrival of Lord Jipeng. How can this old man tell you? Hee, if you tell me, this young master might be merciful and not destroy this Dharma token. As Xiao Hua spoke, he extended his left hand and held the 2 ends of the Grand Universe teleportation token. He smiled and said, If you don't tell me, don't blame this young master for being ruthless and destroying this Dharma token. That Lord Jipeng of your family can't forget about ever coming over. Ha ha ha. What a joke. Do you think that this Grand Universe teleportation token is merely a Dharma token used for teleportation? Yimeng laughed loudly. You can try. This old man doesn't believe that you can actually destroy this item of the demon realm? What? This Dharma token has other uses? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, but he had already exerted force in his hand. Who would have thought that the Grand Universe teleportation token would be so incomparably hard? Even when Xiao Hua exerted force in his hand, this item did not budge at all. There was simply no reaction at all. Damn it, there is indeed something fishy about this item. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. This Meng might be using the pretense of repairing the Grand Universe Teleportation token as an excuse to do some other tricks. Haha, how about it? Meng looked at Xiao Hua's deflated expression and sneered. This item is completely useless in your hands. If you give it to this old man can still consider letting this evil creature live. As he spoke, Meng glanced at Zhang Qingxiao. Whether I live or die, it is naturally up to me to decide. What does it have to do with you? Zhang Qingxiao roared angrily. He opened his mouth, and the bright scenic bell immediately flew out. It turned into a golden light and smashed towards Meng. At the same time, he touched his hand and took out a scarlet triangular flag from his storage pouch. He was just about to wave it. Evil creature, Meng sneered. The devil slip in his hand suddenly released countless black threads that were several feet long. They were like the tentacles of the devil slip. The moment these black threads appeared, the devil slip immediately let out a strange cry. This cry was extremely ear-piercing and rushed into Xiao Hua's ears like a sharp sword. When Xiao Hua saw Zhang Qingxiao make a move, he originally wanted to open his mouth and release the Dream Slayer and Mountain Splitter. However, this devil slip not only pierced his ears, but also his heart. It caused the blood in his veins to surge. It was extremely similar to the feeling during the blood sacrifice. How could Xiao Hua still want to attack? He hastily patted his forehead. Ba, he released the 3 feet tall Buddha relic. Amidst the wind and snow, the merciful Buddha's light shone brightly, blocking the demonic cry of the black silk. Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out the 5-element staff. He clenched his teeth and stood under the Buddha relic, coldly looking at Meng. This Meng was indeed not simple. Just now, the devil slip of unknown origin caused Xiao Hua to be at a disadvantage. And this disadvantage was secondary. The most important thing was that the devil slip seemed to be Zhang Qingxiao's nemesis. As soon as Zhang Qingxiao heard this devil slip, his entire body trembled rapidly. His limbs did not listen to him at all and curled up together. His entire body even fell down in midair. Moreover, after the waving devil slip trembled, the devil slip suddenly expanded and fell on Zhang Qingxiao's body. The devil slip firmly entangled him, and there were even hundreds of devil slip's black slip that pierced his glabella. Zhang Qingxiao's mouth was wide open, making inexplicable sounds. It seemed like he was howling, but also seemed like he was crying. His round eyes were now white, and his black pupils had shrunk to the size of a bean, slowly rotating in his eye sockets. As Zhang Qingxiao screamed, his corporeal body began to twist and change. Some sharp black thorns suddenly shot out from a certain part of his body, and these black thorns quickly retracted the moment they pierced through his clothes. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He really did not expect that Zhang Qingxiao would not have any strength to fight back against Meng. And he really understood Zhang Qingxiao's fear from before, as well as his abnormal behavior when he went up the mountain. This Meng was none other than that bullshit Lord Ji Peng. With just a devil slip, he was able to torture Zhang Qingxiao to this state. If it was really as Zhang Qingxiao had expected, then when Lord Ji Peng came, Zhang Qingxiao would probably be paralyzed, right? What kind of secret technique did you use? You actually managed to erase the devil slip so cleanly? Not only was Xiao Hua shocked, but Meng was also extremely shocked when he saw Zhang Qingxiao struggling under the devil slip's black slip. According to Lord Ji Peng, as long as you hear the devil slip's black slip, you will return to your original body. Why are you still struggling after using the 1,000 slips entanglement? Yuval Spawn, you really want to be a human being? Go. Meng opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of devil slip's black slip towards Zhang Qingxiao. Zhang Qingxiao could not help but cry out loudly. His body under the devil slip's black slip quickly squirmed, as if it had no bones. Devil slip. Go to hell. Xiao Hua felt a pain in his heart. His figure flashed through the air like a breeze and flew in front of Yimeng. He raised his wishful steel staff and struck towards Yimeng's head. Oh, it's actually the flowing cloud movement technique? Yimeng's eyes lit up. He casually waved his hand, and a devil slip's black slip rushed out of his sleeves and blocked the wishful steel staff. The devil slip's black slip seemed to have intelligence as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws. The primordial spirit within the Buddha's relic was not stimulated by Xiaohua. He slightly opened his mouth and said, Lin. Along with the incantation, the Buddha's seal was also pinched and struck out. Oh, you actually understand the Buddhist mantra? Seeing Xiaohua's Buddha's relic strike out, the golden Buddha's light fell. Although this Lin word had the effect of transcendence, it was not used for fighting. However, under the Buddha's light, the devil slip's black slip was like a snowflake under the strong light. It instantly melted, and the devil slip's black slip. Chapter 2730. Seeing that the Buddhist mantra was effective, Xiaohua opened his mouth again without hesitation. The confrontation character spiraled in the air and fell towards Zhang Qingxiao. You dare! Yimeng shouted angrily. He also opened his mouth and a black light rushed out. It turned into a black net in front of the mantra to block it. With a pu sound, the confrontation character fell and broke the black net. It landed on Zhang Qingxiao's body without stopping. See, you. Yimeng was shocked. He did not expect that in just a few decades, Xiaohua's Buddhist cultivation had actually reached such a high realm. It was precisely his nemesis. When the confrontation character landed on Zhang Qingxiao's body, it made a ZZ sound. Although the black threads disappeared like melting snow, the golden mantra was also exhausted. And seeing this, Xiaohua did not find it strange. These black threads were the demonic order bestowed by Lord Ji Peng. If it was broken by a simple mantra, then it would be strange. Confrontation. Xiaohua directly urged the Buddha Sarira to land between him and Zhang Qingxiao. One mantra after another landed on it. Ha ha ha, this old man has not seen your Vajradharma body for many years. Come. Let this old man see what realm your Vajradharma body has reached. Yimeng naturally would not allow Xiaohua to single-mindedly break the seal. He slapped his forehead, and a black aura emerged from the top of his head. It rushed straight into the air and enveloped an area of several dozen feet around him. At the same time, the black gas produced thousands of ghostly wails and wolf howls. It was extremely ear-piercing. Following the emergence of the black gas, other parts of Yimeng's body also surged with black gas. This black gas was different from the black gas above his head. It was like thousands of tentacles covering Yimeng's entire body. Roar. A muffled roar came from Yimeng's throat. His body, which was already completely covered by the black gas, began to squirm like Zhang Qingxiao. The black gas on the surface also suddenly surged like boiling water. At the same time, an indescribable deterrence was emitted from the black qi, and it quickly rushed toward Xiaohua. Xiaohua sighed slightly. He clapped his hands and released the pressure of an early-stage gold core cultivator. He tried his best to resist this demonic deterrence that seemed to be baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. However, in just a moment, Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. This kind of deterrence from Yimeng seemed to be constantly surging over, and it was even climbing steadily. Very soon, it covered his own pressure. That feeling of being unable to resist and feeling of powerlessness came from the depths of his heart. Golden core. However, this is merely the threshold of cultivation. If I were to stay in the demon-resisting valley, I would be nothing more than a pawn. As he thought this, Xiaohua did his best to use his secret technique to deceive the heavens and cross the sea, slowly increasing the pressure. Little thing, You actually know the secret technique of pressure? A sharp voice came out from the black chi. It seemed to be different from the Yin Ming's voice. It was the voice of the devil world that Xiaohua had heard in Ling Pei Mountain Villa. Oomph. Of course I understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here. Xiaohua smiled coldly. He raised the wishful staff in his hand and prepared to fly towards Yin Ming. Ha ha. Just a little thing. You actually dare to show off in front of me. Where is your Buddhist Dharmakaya? To fight with a nobody from the devil world like you, do I still need to use my Dharmakaya? Xiaohua said in a disdainful tone. Ha! You only know one Buddhist mantra, and you still dare to exaggerate? I'll let you see how powerful I am. As Yin Ming spoke, another angry roar was emitted from the black gas. Following the angry roar, the black gas suddenly expanded and stood upright in midair. The swarming black gas was like a fountain that shot upwards by more than 40 feet. A huge force was generated from the black gas, pushing aside everything within 100 feet. Even if Xiaohua wanted to fly to Yiming's side, he would not be able to do so. Xiaohua was helpless. He could only open his mouth, and the Dream Executor and Mountain Breaker flew out. They circled in midair and flew to the other side of Yiming. Just after the Dream Executor and Mountain Breaker flew past the black chi, the 4 feet tall black chi let out a loud roar and then quickly shrank. When the impact gradually disappeared, a 4 feet tall giant appeared in midair. The giant's head was big, and its blood-red hair was curled into a ball. Its fist-sized eyes were black, and there were no ordinary eyeballs. In its bloody mouth, 2 long fangs stretched out obliquely, and a garlic-like nose poked the face that was bigger than a basin. The giant was completely naked, and the black gas from before had already turned into a demonic armor that covered his vital parts. There were strange patterns on the demonic armor, and the patterns were constantly overflowing with a pitch-black brilliance. In the middle of the patterns, the demonic armor was filled with a blood-red substance. Outside of the magic armor was the giant's strong arms. The muscles on the arms were bulging and glossy, and from time to time, there were traces of black chi going in and out of them. Grandma, how can I fight with this? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. Although he was considered a tall cultivator, it was impossible for him to be more than 10 feet tall. This Yin Ming's body was actually more than 4 feet tall. Standing in front of Yin Ming's body, Xiaohua looked like a child. Little thing, where's your Dharma body? This senior has been looking forward to it for a long time. Yin Ming roared, and the bloody mouth actually spat out a bloody light. An indescribable stench of blood permeated the whole place. Do I need a Dharma body to deal with an ordinary demon like you? Xiaohua sneered. His figure flew up, and the wishful staff in his hand smashed towards Yin Ming. Ha ha, little thing is really a little thing. You actually used a magic weapon in front of this senior. The ignorant are really fearless. Yin Ming did not care. He waved his hand and clenched his fist towards Xiaohua's wishful staff. Yin Ming's fist was also a few feet in size. Against Xiaohua's wishful staff, cough cough, it was really a bit of an unfair victory. However, with a loud bang, Yin Ming screamed. Xiaohua's wishful staff suddenly hit Yin Ming's fist, causing black chi to splatter everywhere. Yin Ming's huge arm involuntarily shrank back, and even his entire arm was gushing with blood. You're not a magic weapon? Yin Ming sucked in a breath of cold air and said with some surprise, What this junior uses is none of your business. Just give me your life. Xiaohua's figure was like a shadow, and the wishful staff was raised towards Yin Ming's head. However, he was really shorter than Yin Ming. The wishful staff was no different from a matchstick to Yin Ming, but just now, he had suffered a loss from the matchstick. How could Yin Ming dare to be careless? His other uninjured arm patted his hand and took out a huge mace from his storage bag. Good boy. This magic weapon. I am afraid it is 2 feet long. Xiaohua watched as the huge mace was wrapped in a faint black aura as it streaked through the air. The sharp teeth on the mace let out a sharp screech. The sound of the wind and the pressure from the mace were produced at the same time. Xiaohua couldn't help but be speechless. Fight! Xiaohua was not afraid of this kind of fight. Although his wishful staff was really short, the courage in his heart was higher than the sky. When he heard his roar, the wishful staff turned around to meet the mace. Boom! Another loud noise, and the air was once again set off in mid-air, and the snowflakes that had been floating in the air were swept away. Xiaohua's body flew back more than 100 feet, and Yimeng's figure also staggered and retreated. Kill! Xiaohua's figure retreated, but his killing move did not stop. He secretly urged the Zhu Meng behind him to split the mountain, and like a meteor chasing the moon, it stabbed Yimeng. Umph! Yimeng naturally saw the two flying swords. Seeing the flying swords stabbing at him, he stretched out his hand, and the black qi on the arm that was previously smashed by Xiaohua slowly retracted, and an intact fist appeared again. The large hand opened, and a shadow covered the area. It was as if there was a sealing force that sealed the space around the flying sword. The Dream Executioner and Mountain Splitter immediately felt as if they had fallen into a quagmire. Kill! Xiaohua coldly snorted again, and his figure just stabilized. Following Xiaohua's urging, the two flying swords suddenly emitted a green and red brilliance. As soon as this brilliance was born, it immediately began to blend, and a fist-sized heart shape was born on the two flying swords. Oh, sword intent. You actually know the sword technique. Yimeng was a little surprised, but the imprisoning force in his hand did not decrease. Thin black silk even grew from his fingers and hung down, quickly wrapping the whole heart shape. You're courting death. Xiaohua sneered. The heart shape in the black qi rapidly expanded, and the black qi had no choice but to expand as well. When the heart shape was a few feet in size, it suddenly emitted a jie sound, and a completely green and red sword light burst out from the black qi. A few feet long flying sword stood out from the black qi. Illusory sword? Yimeng obviously also understood sword cultivation very well, and could not help but be stunned. How can you be an illusory sword cultivator? Wang, as soon as the heart sword was born, it immediately emitted an endless sword intent. The sword qi also penetrated from the sword light, directly piercing towards Yimeng's big hand. Yimeng did not dare to be careless. His hand slightly rotated, and a cluster of black qi was born from the palm of his hand, wrapping around the heart sword. Go to hell! Xiaohua roared, and his figure flew up again. The wishful steel staff crossed in midair, and the thunder under his feet moved. He borrowed the power of the staff, and the sound of thunder from the staff, and smashed towards the giant Yimeng without arrogance. The wishful steel staff still had the sound of the wind, but under the roar of thunder, the sound of the wind could not be heard. The suffocating force above the staff stirred up the black gas on the Yimeng demon armor from afar. A strange flow of black gas and blood appeared on the Yimeng demon armor out of thin air. Chapter 2731. Yimeng was originally attracted by the heart sword, but now he was disturbed by the wishful steel staff. He was furious. Roar! He simply retracted his hand and allowed the heart sword to grow bigger and bigger in the black gas. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood-red light, which enveloped the area of 10 feet around the heart sword. He held the mace with both hands and attacked Xiaohua's wishful steel staff. Fortunately, Yimeng made a decision. Xiaohua's attack seemed slow, but in fact it was really fast. It was absolutely different from the first attack, just now. In the blink of an eye, it fell on Yimeng's left shoulder. It was where the black gas came from. Boom! There was a loud noise, as if the entire Tianju Peak was blown up by a huge wave. The craggy rocks on the peak were torn apart by the force of the collision between the two. Rumble, the rocks tumbled down from the foothills on all sides. Come! Just as Xiaohua's seemingly thin and weak body was sent flying like a piece of duckweed, The black gas behind Ming rapidly spun under the bloody light. It was as if countless sentient tentacles had blocked the heart sword. Threads of bloody light seeped into the black gas in an attempt to corrupt the flying sword. With a long cry from the heart sword, the piercing sword light penetrated the black gas and pierced through the blood light. The sword light was like a rainbow, stabbing straight at Ming's back. Ming sent Xiao Hua flying, but he himself was also not in a good state. His huge body suddenly flew backwards, and this flying sword just happened to stab diagonally into the magic armor on his back. Buzz, the green and red sword light flashed, and the black gas on the magic armor was defeated. Although the black gas combined with the blood light quickly transformed into patterns, and there was an indescribable fluctuation, the sword light still went in roar. Ming let out a sad cry, and his whole body shook rapidly. His whole head and feet turned strangely, and his front heart turned into his back. Unexpectedly, his back was facing Xiao Hua. Woo! Where the flying sword pierced, there was no bloodlight. Instead, the black gas surged rapidly, and countless black gas covered the flying sword, as if to swallow the flying sword into the body. Not good. Feeling the surge of the devil chi, his connection with the flying sword weakened. Xiao Hua was slightly shocked. The moment his body floated, he hurriedly used the ethereal steps and the wind escape technique. Like a ghost in the air, he instantly appeared behind Ming. Woo! The wishful steel staff struck again. Oh, not good. Although Ming paid attention to Xiao Hua, he did not expect Xiao Hua's actions to be so fast. How could he dare to deal with the flying sword with all his strength? He hurriedly waved the wishful staff again. Taking advantage of Ming's distraction, the sword light of the heart sword suddenly expanded and slashed a hole several feet in front of Ming's heart before rushing out. Woo! Although there was no trace of blood, Ming still couldn't help but cry out in pain. Little thing, devil, demon devil. Ming sent Xiao Hua flying away with his mace, then said viciously, Di Luo, that bastard, didn't he give you too many things? Di Luo? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He did not understand what Ming was talking about, but he did not pay attention to it. The soul of Zhu Dream urged the entire heart of sword to fly into the air. The flashing green and red sword light flashed slightly, and two heart-shaped sword intents appeared at the same time, one from the left and one from the right, piercing towards Ming. At the same time, Xiao Hua threw out a fire talisman, which fell at Ming's feet. Rumble! The fire talisman exploded, and waves of fire soared into the sky. The huge impact and flames instantly blew apart the lower half of Ming's body. Streams of demonic energy rolled in the flames, and Ming's exasperated curses and roars were drowned out by the waves of fire. Ha ha! What devil cultivator? What deity? Nothing more than this. Xiao Hua sneered and looked at Zhang Qingxiao. The Buddha Sarara was the nemesis of the devil cultivator, but Xiao Hua was afraid that Zhang Qingxiao would be in danger. He did not dare to use the Buddha Sarara against the enemy. He could only rely on the Buddhist mantra to maintain Zhang Qingxiao's current situation. At this time, it was still the same as before. Although the Buddha's light and the mantra's golden light fell, the black silk wrapped around Zhang Qingxiao did not show any signs of collapse. Army, do! Xiao Hua was a bit anxious. He did not care whether the mantra would harm Zhang Qingxiao or not, and spat out the two mantras in succession. The army mantra was still okay. It was no different from the confrontation mantra. When it fell on it, it only dispersed the black chi on the surface, and the black chi recovered in a moment. However, the Do mantra was a bit strange. It actually turned into strands of golden silk and fell into the black chi. Zhang Qingxiao's body wriggled even more violently in the black chi, and all kinds of devil thorns crazily rushed out from various parts of her body. Damn it, is this right or wrong? Xiao Hua was a bit helpless. But at this time, without waiting for him to do anything, a cold voice came from behind him. No matter what deity fought in the so-called Imperial Demon Valley. Don't tell me you want to rely on this bullshit spirit talisman to kill deity? Xiaohua frowned slightly. When he turned his head, he was a bit dumbfounded, but he saw that Yimeng was different from before. Her legs that were destroyed by the fire talisman had recovered, and her originally bare legs were now covered with black qi. And this black qi? No, it should be said that all the black qi around Yimeng's body had changed and turned into dancing flames. It's just that these flames are not the usual green-red color of Dawn Rain Continent, nor are they purple. Instead, they're those pitch-black colored flames. Xiaohua was almost moaning in a low voice. He already understood that this Yimeng was cultivating the devil flame of the Devil Realm's cultivation method. She used devil qi to cultivate the devil flame, and according to the level of the devil flame, the devil cultivator's level of cultivation was determined. His fire talisman was admittedly very powerful, but it was still of the fire attribute. When it came to Yimeng, he was afraid that it would not cause much damage. Innate true water. Xiaohua instantly thought of his other killing move. However, when he thought of Zhang Qingxiao's situation, he immediately killed this idea. What should I do? Xiaohua didn't have many encounters with devil cultivators, and this was the first time dealing with this kind of devil cultivator. He really couldn't figure out Yimeng's background. Fortunately, Zhang Qingxiao had previously let Xiaohua see the Devil Slip and Blood Drop Paradise's cultivation method, so he had some understanding of the Devil Realm's cultivation method. I'm afraid that Second Martial Brother is right. That spirit-punishing vital light should be able to kill this guy, Xiaohua thought to himself. However, I still haven't mastered the spirit-punishing vital light. If I act rashly and let him prepare, I'm afraid that it won't be easy to succeed. Thinking of Xiaohua, she coldly said, Yimeng, you're a cultivator of the Blue Li sect. How did you participate in the Battle of the Imperial Devil Valley? Don't you find it tiring to keep calling me your highness? My Dawn Rain Continent has a saying, a real man doesn't change his name. Do you dare to leave your name? Ha ha ha, Yimeng laughed. The pitch-black devil flame around his body moved as if it was breathing, and an indescribable heat enveloped an area of nearly 100 feet. This sovereign is Lord Ji Peng's subordinate, Deputy General Qing Xian. I'm also a famous general of the northern Jian Devil region. What's the harm in telling you my name? It's just to satisfy your curiosity. Qing Xian said arrogantly. You're a devil person. How did you sneak into my Dawn Rain Continent? Moreover, you can cultivate devil techniques? Xiaohua was extremely puzzled. He had also seen the Blood Drop Paradise before, but he couldn't make sense of it at all. Naturally, he wanted to take advantage of the situation. Holding this Qing Xian, his body looked huge, but he wasn't stupid. He coldly looked at Xiaohua and pointed with his hand. If this kind of evil creature can sneak into the Dawn Rain Continent, why can't this sovereign? As for how to cultivate devil techniques, seeing that you've even cultivated the Huan country's flying sword to the illusory sword, could it be you still want to cultivate devil techniques? Since you have such lofty aspirations, why shouldn't this sovereign fulfill your wish? Oh, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and curiously asked, then what's the reason? It's very simple. Qing Xian stretched out a finger that was comparable to a wishful staff and faintly smiled. You only need to be possessed by this sovereign, then you can naturally cultivate. Xiaohua's expression turned ugly, while Qing Xian laughed heartily. A pitch-black brilliance flashed around his body, and within a radius of 100 zhang that was enveloped by the heat, strands of black flames suddenly flashed. These black flames not only burned the air to the point of distorting, but also surged towards Xiaohua like a surging wave. Moreover, this space was sealed, completely wrapping Xiaohua within. Sure enough, it's devil flames that overflow the heavens. Xiaohua sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a ball of fierce flame. He was about to use the divine flame art, but at this moment, behind Qing Xian, a burst of sword cries rang out. An indescribable, bone-piercing pain entered Xiaohua's primordial spirit. Not good. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly urged his sword art to retrieve his flying swords. Don't you think it's too late to retrieve them now? Qing Xian sneered. He clenched his hand, and a black flame like a waterfall rushed towards the two flying swords that were already besieged by the devil flame. Looking at the Dream Executor and Mountain Splitter, the green-red sword radiance rapidly swallowed and spat out, and also slowly contracted. The strands of devil flame had already seeped into the sword intent of the heart sword along with the sword radiance. It was precisely the two flying swords that were burning. Xiao Hua now also cared about the fierce flame. The sword essence around his body surged, and bursts of sword radiance were released from his body. A huge sword of 2 zhang in size appeared where Xiao Hua was. It was actually very similar to a sword cultivator's sword transformation. However, at the core of this huge sword, Xiao Hua's figure still existed. He did not merge with the sword radiance. Under the lingering sword radiance, Xiao Hua's face was slightly embarrassed. Break! Xiao Hua snorted coldly. The huge sword streaked across the sky and directly slashed towards Qing Xian. Wherever the sword radiance passed, it actually split apart the monstrous devil flame. Qing Xian was originally shocked when he saw Xiao Hua transform into a sword, but when he saw that Xiao Hua himself could not transform into a sword, he did not feel it was funny. However, when the sword radiance fell, he was stunned. He could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The flying swords that Xiao Hua transformed into were neither fish nor fowl, but the fierceness of the sword qi could not be faked. Moreover, before the huge sword fell, the imprisonment comparable to a sword transformation had already appeared around Qing Xian and surged towards Qing Xian, as if it wanted to squeeze Qing Xian. Chapter 2732. This little thing is really an illusory sword cultivator. Qing Xian was not surprised. He shook his shoulder, and demonic flames surged out from his body. He tried his best to burn away the shackles, and, at the same time, he raised his mace. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Another huge sound rang out. This time, it was even more intense than the previous ones. Qing Xian's 12-zhang tall devil body was struck down by Xiao Hua's huge sword. A huge hole appeared in the space, surrounded by the black flames. Returned, Xiao Hua opened his mouth. Zhu Ming and Hua Shan took the opportunity to fly across the sky and landed in front of Xiao Hua with the black flames. Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He slapped his hand, and the yin-yang sword gourd flew out, stopping right next to the two flying swords. Extinguish. Xiao Hua grabbed with his hand, and the yin-yang sleeve came out. In an instant, the black flames on the flying swords were extinguished. Then he pointed with his hand, and the two flying swords fell into the yin-yang sword gourd. Xiao Hua held the sword gourd in his hand, and the sword light around his body flashed. He coldly looked at the flustered Qing Xian who was flying up from the black flames. Without waiting for him to stabilize himself in the air, he chanted a mantra. The two red and green flying swords, which were actually stored in the space, flew into the air with the sword gourd and directly pierced towards Qing Xian's head. You're courting death. Qing Xian opened his mouth, and a mouthful of bloody light blocked the flying swords. No matter how the flying swords looked for a flaw, they could not pierce through. Xiao Hua was helpless. He pointed at the yin-yang sword gourd, and the two flying swords returned. Damn it, little thing, this sovereign saw that your body was not bad. This sovereign wanted to use you as a meat cauldron, but you actually don't know what's good for you. Qing Xian angrily shouted, Hand over your life. As he spoke, he opened his mouth again, and several mouthfuls of bloody light fell into the black flames. The black flames set off waves of fire, and they rushed towards Xiao Hua. It's just demonic flames. What's so great about them? Xiao Hua sneered. The icicle flame from before became even more vigorous. It flashed red around Xiao Hua's body, and he fearlessly flew towards the black flames. Boom! Xiao Hua usually used the frigid death flame to refine equipment, but he had never used it against an enemy. However, The frigid death flame, which was like a crimson dragon, was not inferior to the Yi-Yang fan from before. It directly threw itself into the black flames. Kiki, how can such ordinary flames be a match for my sex black flames? Qing Xian let out an arrogant laugh. He brandished the mace in his hand and chopped towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua knew that although the wishful steel staff was heavy, it was really too small. He would not be able to take advantage of this guy. He simply did not use the wishful steel staff and still turned it into a sword and slashed towards Qing Xian. Boom! Another huge sound rang out. The sword light around Xiao Hua's body flickered rapidly, and Qing Xian was sent flying again. It was another tie. However, the same couldn't be said for Lingyi Zhuhua. Just as Qing Xian had said, when the crimson dragons rushed into the black flames, perhaps they couldn't compare to the black flames, or perhaps there were too few of them. They were completely annihilated by the black flames and disappeared. Looking at the black flames that pounced towards him once again, Xiao Hua frowned. With a wave of his hands, 2 purple flames appeared in his hands. The pure as crystal Samadhi true fire immediately forced the black flames in front of him to retreat. Oh, Samadhi true fire? Qing Xian was not surprised that Xiao Hua had Samadhi true fire. However, seeing this unusually pure Samadhi true fire, he was somewhat moved. This was definitely the first time he had seen something like this in his life. Immediately, the previously extinguished thought of taking over his body was born again. This little thing's physical body is much stronger than this Yin Ming. Not only is it of the fire attribute, but it has also practiced flying swords. That physical body is absolutely strong. If this sovereign takes over his body, advancing to Devil General is not a problem. Go! How could Xiao Hua know what Qing Xian was thinking? Both of his hands waved the fire-controlling art. Dozens of Samadhi true fire danced in the air like needles, rushing towards the top of his head, as if wanting to break through the black flames. Haha, it's just Samadhi true fire. How can it break through this sex black flames? Qing Xian laughed. Little thing, you should obediently surrender. This sovereign will tell you the secret of devil cultivators. Go! Xiao Hua did not say anything and pointed his finger at the sword gourd. The execution dream and mountain splitter flew out again, stabbing towards Qing Xian. Qing Xian waved his hand, and the black flames flashed with a bloody light, blocking the 2 flying swords. When Xiao Hua withdrew the flying swords again, the mace in Qing Xian's hand involuntarily moved, as if waiting for Xiao Hua's sword attack. Sure enough, Xiao Hua urged the sword light around his body, and with a woo sound, it chopped over. Rumble, the devil flames around Qing Xian rushed out crazily. The wishful staff in his hand barely blocked the giant sword. Qing Xian himself fell several feet and sent Xiao Hua flying. But how could Xiao Hua be sent flying? The sword light around his body suddenly became resplendent, and the sword chi above his head pounced towards the Samadhi true fire that was already tearing apart the black flames. The Samadhi true fire was much stronger than the Lingyi Zhu fire. Although the quantity was very small, it was already able to resist the black flames and tear a small hole in the black flames. Now that Xiao Hua had turned into a sword and stabbed into the small hole, the black flames were immediately split open and forced to retreat. A ray of light shot in from outside the black flames. Want to leave? No way. Xiao Hua was just about to rush out when he heard Qing Xian's mockery. He saw that in the black flames that were forced to roll, countless blood threads rushed out and quickly condensed into a blood net above the giant sword. The sword light and sword chi fell into the blood threads and were immediately corroded. Seeing the sword light of the giant sword disappear very quickly, the blood threads under Qing Xian's urging endlessly poured out. Xiao Hua had no choice but to retreat. Because of several sword transformations, the sword chi in Xiao Hua's body could no longer support him. His thin and tall figure gradually appeared again. And it's really only the 3rd grade of the illusory sword realm. Qing Xian smiled with satisfaction. To be able to retreat from this sovereign's blood pool, you can be proud. It's better for you to be proud of yourself. Xiao Hua waved his hands as if to use the thunder summoning technique, but to his surprise, there was no reaction at all. It seemed to be completely blocked by the black flames. Not good. Xiao Hua's heart tightened and unconsciously pointed his finger at the sword gourd. Whoosh whoosh. The two flying swords rushed out again and still stabbed towards Qing Xian's head. This time, Qing Xian was impatient. He waved his hand as if swatting a fly. The black flames rushed over and blocked the flying swords, and his attention was once again focused on Xiao Hua's following attack. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't let him down. With a shake of his hand, he took out the wishful staff and threw it in front of him again with a bang. After Qing Xian easily sent Xiao Hua flying, the Dream Slayer and Mountain Splitter flew back into the sword gourd. However, at this time, Xiao Hua waved his hand and a talisman flew out. This talisman was shabby. Xiao Hua had obtained it in the Imperial Thunder Sect's Eastern Ridge Herb Garden, but he hadn't used it much. At this time, as Xiao Hua urged his spiritual power, an incomplete big hand appeared from the talisman. Following Xiao Hua's figure, it grabbed towards the black flames. The hand of a nascent soul. Qing Xian was slightly surprised, but after sweeping it with his devil sense, he smiled again. What kind of talisman is this? It looks like the hand of a nascent soul, but it doesn't have the power of a nascent soul. To deal with a little devil like you, is there a need to use the hand of a nascent soul? Xiao Hua urged his golden core. The spiritual power of the golden core rushed out from the two yin and yang meridians. Those incomplete meridians were faintly uncomfortable. Buzz, when the large hand grabbed the black flame, it was as if it was tearing apart a piece of cloth. A 10-feet-long tear appeared. However, the spiritual talisman was immediately contaminated by the black flame. It emitted black smoke and burned at an extremely fast speed. Rumble. Taking advantage of this opening, Xiao Hua waved his hands and used the lightning drawing technique. Dark clouds rolled over Tianzhu Peak, and countless lightning flashed in the dark clouds. Imperial Thunder Technique? Qing Xian was shocked. He looked at the horizon in disbelief, then lowered his head to look at Xiao Hua, who was waving his hands. You are a Golden Core cultivator. How is it possible? Ka-cha-cha. The sound of thunder like a drum pulled Qing Xian back from his shock. He couldn't see any understanding in his eyes. Instead, he shouted in a sharp voice, Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunder Immortal. Who is he to you? Thunder Immortal? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. However, he immediately understood. He pulled his hands downwards, and with a kacha sound, dozens of heavenly lightning bolts descended following his hand gesture, striking the black flames. Under the light of the lightning, the black flames emitted a sizzling sound and rapidly retreated. Under the black flames, scarlet blood traces could be seen. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't answer his question, Qing Xian was furious. Black gas continuously surged out from his body. When the black gas came into contact with the devil flames, it immediately turned into black flames and continuously rushed into the sky, filling up the gaps caused by the lightning strikes. This sovereign wants to see even a nascent soul cultivator as strong as the Thunder Immortal couldn't continuously control lightning. You, a little golden core cultivator. But at this point, Qing Xian suddenly stopped and shouted with a strange tone, This sovereign understands. You are definitely the disciple of the Thunder Immortal. That old ghost couldn't resist the backlash of the Imperial Thunder Technique. When his body was on the verge of collapse, he found a way to save himself. Your sword cultivation technique was taught by him. Hee, devil brat, you're really smart. Xiao Hua already understood from Qing Xian's words that Qing Xian, who participated in the Battle of Imperial Demon Valley, must have fought with the so-called Thunder Immortal. He must have suffered a great loss from the lightning strikes. And his opponent, the Thunder Immortal, can also control lightning like him. Of course, in the Imperial Thunder Sect, there are many cultivators who can control lightning, especially those above Nascent Soul. Xiao Hua doesn't know of them. This thunder immortal is either a nascent soul cultivator or a spirit-severing cultivator. Both of them are from the Imperial Thunder sect. Thus, Xiaohua smiled and said, "Since you know that this young master is the Thunder Immortal's disciple, why don't you quickly surrender?" Obediently let this young master kill you? Ha ha ha! This sovereign suffered a great loss at the hands of the Thunder Immortal. These thousands of years, I've always been thinking about how to avoid the lightning strikes and how to kill him. Now that I can't see the Thunder Immortal, killing his disciple is also a happy thing. Qing Xian laughed loudly. He opened his mouth and another ball of bloody light flew out. You think this sovereign can't block the lightning strikes? Chapter 2733. Damn it, I've been tricked. Hearing Qing Xian's words, Xiaohua's heart sank. He felt that he had overreached himself. The bloodlight that Qing Xian spat out was different from before. Once it landed in the air, it immediately turned into blood shadows and rushed into the black flames that were scattered by the lightning. The black flames immediately stopped flowing and turned into all kinds of strange shapes. They looked like demonic beasts and demons. They covered the black flames. Kill. Xiaohua was curious. He waved his hands, and dozens of lightning bolts fell and hit the black flames. The protrusions on the black flames were the first to hit the lightning bolts. Under the lightning, the protrusions were immediately flattened. Countless golden lightning bolts covered the protrusions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time that the lightning bolts fell on the black flames, blood threads similar to the lightning bolts were released from the collapsed areas. Sizzle, sizzle. Countless sizzling sounds rang out from all around the black flames. The power of the heavenly lightning was actually corroded by the blood threads, and it melted away in an instant. Xiaohua unconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking at the strange blood threads, he was stunned. He understood that if it was before the lightning tribulation, it would be reasonable for Qing Xian to break his lightning bolts. He didn't feel surprised. However, after going through the lightning tribulation, his gold core contained the inner cores of the male and female lightning beasts. His lightning controlling technique had a qualitative leap. At this time, the lightning bolts were several times stronger than before. Even Xiaohua's body felt a little numb. This was the backlash of the lightning bolts that Qing Xian said. Even such a powerful method couldn't destroy the blood threads. No wonder Qing Xian, who couldn't gain the upper hand after several exchanges, wasn't nervous at all. He was still fighting with him methodically. This guy isn't afraid, but this young master is... Xiaohua looked at the Buddha's light that blocked the black flames a few feet away. No matter if it was the black flames or the blood threads, once they touched the Buddha's light, they were like snowflakes meeting fire. They instantly melted. Xiaohua sneered again. At worst, this young master will use the Buddhist sex techniques to face the enemy. I'll use the innate true water to kill this guy. Furthermore, in the end, I had to sacrifice my cultivation base to kill you with my spiritual flame. Thinking to this point, Xiaohua's courage was boosted. He pulled with both hands, and another 100 bolts of heavenly lightning fell. Seeing Xiaohua easily draw the heavenly lightning to extinguish his black flames, Qing Xian's heart was in turmoil. He really didn't expect Xiaohua to have such a trick up his sleeve. Don't hesitate anymore. Qing Xian steeled his heart and began to recite the cryptic syllables. As he recited the syllables, Qing Xian's lower body gradually became blurry. Damn it, who said that the people of the demon realm only know how to use demonic tools? When Xiaohua heard this inexplicable syllable, he suddenly felt uneasy in his heart. He cursed in his heart and continuously used the lightning controlling technique. Heavenly lightning fell down, wanting to destroy the space surrounded by the black flames. Roar! From below Qing Xian's body, countless black flames mixed with blood-red light surged out and let out a strange roar. The black flames then formed all kinds of shapes, and a strange roar came from these shapes. These black flames spread towards Xiao Hua like a tide, as if countless ants were rushing towards a lonely piece of bone. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across the area, and he immediately understood that these numerous shapes all contained different types of demonic beast souls. These demonic beast souls formed something like a demonic array to attack him. If these black flames and demonic beast souls pounced on him, he would become a delicacy in the mouths of these demonic beast souls. It's time. Xiao Hua calculated for a moment and waved his hand. After a thick bolt of heavenly lightning fell, the wishful staff appeared in his hand again. Quick! Xiao Hua pointed his finger at the yin-yang sword gourd. 2 green and red sword lights flew out from the sword gourd and drew 2 arcs in the air, flying towards Qing Xian's head. Boring. Qing Xian waved his hand very naturally, and another blood-red light emerged from the black flames, blocking in front of the green and red sword lights. He also held the wolf-tooth mace in his hand, and his devil sense fell on Xiao Hua's wishful staff. The green and red sword lights were the same as before. When they flew to the top of Qing Xian's head, they were blocked by the blood-red light, and then they also retreated. But after retreating a few inches, they suddenly accelerated, and from the sides of the blood-red light, they fell straight on Qing Xian's neck. The green and red sword lights were so fast and so flexible. It was simply beyond Qing Xian's expectations. When Qing Xian realized it, the sword lights had already surrounded his huge neck and slashed. No, these are not the 2 flying swords just now. By the time Qing Xian could tell that one of the 2 sword lights was scarlet red and the other was azure, and not a mix of azure and red, he was scared out of his wits. He even cried out, This seems to be Spirit Slayer. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to say the 2 words primordial light before the green and red sword lights twisted around his neck, and a bloody mark appeared on his neck. With a loud pung, the huge head soared from his neck, and from where the head was cut off, black gas and blood-red light rushed out. Whoa! Like the whistling of the wind, all the black flames, black gas, and blood-red light lost control, and like 10,000 streams returning to the origin, they poured into the soaring black gas and blood-red light. Qing Xian's giant body began to collapse, and streams of black gas rolled out from his body. The deterrents that had been suppressing Xiao Hua also receded like a tide, and Xiao Hua couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He knew in his heart that under his calculations, this Qing Xian was finally killed. What a scary but not dangerous experience. Thinking about the somewhat difficult fight just now, Xiao Hua was extremely emotional. He pointed his finger at the sword gourd, and the spirit execution primordial light fell into the sword gourd again. He glanced at Zhang Qingxiao, who had stopped to rest. At this moment, Zhang Qingxiao's body was still surrounded by black gas, and the blood-red light didn't disappear because of Qing Xian's extermination. This is a bit troublesome, Xiao Hua thought, and his figure was about to fly over. However, at this moment, an extremely cold and unfamiliar voice came from the collapsing black gas of Qing Xian. You little bug, you actually have the spirit execution primordial light. Moreover, you actually know how to control this ancient killing aura? Looking at the method, it must be that bastard Di Luo who told you, right? Who? Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly stabilized his body. However, the black flames that had originally retreated suddenly changed color, and all of them turned scarlet, and once again surrounded the surroundings. Blood drop paradise? Looking at the space that looked like a huge drop of blood and the scarlet walls, Xiao Hua seemed to have thought of something, and with a look of disbelief, he looked at the black gas that was still rolling in the center of the space and said, You actually still have blood refinement after cultivating the devil flame? Little bug, you know the cultivation methods of the devil realm very well. The voice was very unfamiliar, and Xiao Hua felt that it definitely wasn't Qing Xian and definitely not Yimeng. Since you can understand the sword cultivation methods, and also the Buddhist techniques, and even control the spirit execution primordial light, then Why can't I understand the devil flame and the blood drop paradise? You're not Yiming, and you're not Qing Xianu. Who are you? Xiao Hua held the yin-yang sword gourd tightly in his hand, and only then did he feel a trace of safety in his heart, and couldn't help but ask. Didn't you already hear my name before? Don't you also know about the blood drop paradise? The voice was neither fast nor slow, and said indifferently, Jipeng? You're really Jipeng? Xiao Hua looked at the rolling black gas, but didn't see any demons appear, and couldn't help but be surprised. Weren't you at Million Ming Mountains? When did you come to the Dawn Rain continent? However, Jipeng didn't answer him, and countless woo-woo sounds came from the black gas. The rhythm was very strange, and hearing it gave Xiao Hua goosebumps all over his body. Xiao Hua's mind raced, although the voice didn't admit that it was the devil general Jipeng. But other than Jipeng, Xiao Hua couldn't think of any other devil general. Moreover, Zhang Qingxiao had said clearly that she was most afraid of this Jipeng, and even the method that Qing Xian used to deal with Zhang Qingxiao was taught by Jipeng. Of course, Xiao Hua now understood that Qing Xian wasn't the only one in Yiming's body. There was also Jipeng. The one who had restrained Zhang Qingxiao might not have been Qing Xian. It was most likely Jipeng. Moreover, what made Xiao Hua most nervous was that when Zhang Qingxiao ordered Xiao Hua to use the spirit-slaying origin light to kill Jipeng, it was based on the assumption that Jipeng possessed the body of a cultivator from the Dawn Rain continent. For example, although Qing Xian was a devil general of the devil realm, and just cutting off his head wouldn't necessarily kill Qing Xian, he was currently possessing Yiming. Although Qing Xian had already revealed his devil body, cutting off his head could still kill Yiming, and similarly, Qing Xian. But now, Xiao Hua's spirit-slaying origin light had already succeeded and killed Yiming and Qing Xian. But Jipeng, who Zhang Qingxiao was most afraid of, had appeared again. What method could Xiao Hua use to deal with Jipeng? Was it still the spirit-slaying origin light that Zhang Qingxiao was most confident in? Furthermore, based on the current situation, it was needless to say that Jipeng's spirit clone, like Qing Xian, had always been with Yiming in the heavenly demonic sect. He must have seen everything that Zhang Qingxiao had done. Qing Xian's anger towards Zhang Qingxiao was also because of Jipeng. Qing Xian wanted to replace Zhang Qingxiao, so he might not necessarily want Zhang Qingxiao's life. However, Jipeng would definitely want Zhang Qingxiao's life for betraying him. In that case, Xiao Hua had to fight Jipeng to the death. Swift. When he thought up to here, Xiao Hua didn't dare hesitate any longer. He pointed with his finger, and then 2 green and red sword lights appeared within the yin-yang sword gourd, and they drew 2 arcs in midair before falling into the black qi once more. Chapter 2734. With a clear swoosh, a ball of blood suddenly sprayed out from where the sword light landed. This blood light was the size of a basin, and it just happened to block the sword light. The green and red sword light slightly paused in midair, and then separated, falling towards the edge of the blood light. However, the blood light was as intelligent as the sword light. At the same time, it also split into 2, and once again blocked the sword light from falling. Now, after several attempts, the spirit execution vital light was unable to pierce through the black gas. Kill! Xiao Hua's face was stunned, and he urged the vital light again. With a swoosh, the brilliance of the 2 sword lights increased, and they directly pierced into the blood light. Hiss, 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 like cold water falling into a pot of oil. The entire blood light exploded. However, just as the sword light broke through the blood light and landed again, 2 balls of blood spurted out from the black gas. The sword light landed squarely on the balls of blood. With a clang sound, the sword light immediately became much dimmer. Not good. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed, and he hurriedly urged the yin-yang sword gourd. Unexpectedly, the blood seemed to have an extremely strong suction force, and the 2 flying swords were actually unable to break free. Damn it! Xiao Hua's gold core surged, and his magic power rushed out. The yin-yang sword gourd flashed with golden light, and with a swoosh, the mouth of the sword gourd also suddenly released a huge force. With two swoosh sounds, the green and red sword light finally broke free from the blood and flew back. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and it was precisely the flying sword that fell into the sword gourd. The originally sparkling and translucent flying sword now had some specks of blood on it, and it was obviously stained by the blood. He couldn't help but feel a bit of heartache, and he knew that it would take a lot of effort to get rid of the blood. Little bug, you really have a lot of tricks. That cold voice once again came out from the rolling black gas. However, just relying on this incomplete spirit execution vital light, you still aren't this lord's opponent. Oomph. Xiao Hua sneered. He slapped his hand and took out the ocean overturning seal. Under the urging of his magic power, the coiling dragon held the seal in its mouth and smashed it towards the black gas. Its might was clearly several times stronger than before it condensed its core. Ha 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 ha! How can these worthless transcendent treasures hurt me? Ji Peng laughed loudly. This time, there was no need for any blood-red light. A ball of black flames flew out, and like a blooming lotus, it stopped the ocean-overturning seal. The ocean-overturning seal tumbled a few times, but it was unable to land. Little bug, your magic weapon is getting worse. Ji Peng chuckled. The black gas vibrated violently and shrank rapidly. Countless blood vessels surged out of the black gas and wrapped around it. A demon body that was close to 15 meters in size appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes, flashing with a blood-red brilliance. It's really you. Looking at the demon body that was 3 meters taller than Qing Xian, then looking at the extremely ugly face of the demon body, Xiao Hua's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression as he spoke coldly. That's right. The current Ji Peng was the one that Xiao Hua had seen in the demon's den on Thousand Zhang Peak when he was still a rogue cultivator several decades ago. It was that huge statue, that tall, blood-red, and ugly demon. Even Ji Peng's tall and protruding forehead, as well as his upturned nose and fangs in his mouth. What surprised Xiao Hua the most was that there was actually a thin membrane between the man's two arms that was connected to his back. It's really you? You have actually seen this lore before? Ji Peng was different from Qing Xian. His eyes flashed with blood-red light, and a kind of astonishment could be discerned from within. There's a statue of you under Xi's Thousand Zhang Peak. Xiao Hua mocked. Do you need this young master to bring you to see it? Ha ha ha. So that's how it is. Ji Peng threw his head back and laughed loudly. His voice reverberated throughout the entire space, and the entire blood-red space shook with his laughter. Xiao Hua sized up Ji Peng's entire body. It was completely blood-red, and there was no demon armor to be seen. Furthermore, Qing Xian's originally bulging muscles were now completely replaced by strange patterns. These patterns that seemed to belong to the demon world did not reveal any brilliance and were extremely rough. As Ji Peng's forelimbs swayed, the patterns trembled slightly, as if they were emitting some kind of fluctuation. Ji Peng laughed loudly and stretched out his hand. As if reaching out to pluck the moon, the seal of tumbling sea that Xiao Hua did not have time to withdraw in time was thrown into his hand. What kind of technique is this? Xiao Hua was stunned. He sensed that his connection with the seal of tumbling sea had disappeared as soon as Ji Peng raised his hand. How can someone from the demon world know magic? Xiao Hua hurriedly urged the magic, wanting to contact the seal of tumbling sea. Unfortunately, all his probing was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no news at all. Ha ha ha, little worm. Although this sovereign does not have the strength to reach its peak, in this sovereign's blood drop paradise, you can only be this sovereign's food. You still want to put up a meaningless struggle? Ji Peng laughed loudly, and the entire blood drop paradise shook with his laughter. It was as if the entire space was laughing. Seeing that the seal of tumbling sea had fallen into Ji Peng's hands, Xiao Hua could do nothing but panic. He had already released his divine consciousness, wanting to find a crack in this paradise. Ji Peng seemed to be able to sense Xiao Hua's divine consciousness. He laughed and said, "You can't even break through Qing Xian's black flames. What kind of talisman are you relying on? You can forget about this sovereign's paradise. Looking at your physical body, you can actually control lightning. You must be extremely powerful. Compared to this Yin Ming or Du Peng, you must be stronger. Wait until this sovereign enjoys your physical body. Then I'll go look for lightning. Who knows, this sovereign's lightning cultivation might even surpass that guy's." Possession. Xiao Hua understood. Yin Ming's corporeal body had already been killed by him, and Qing Xian had probably died along with Yin Ming. As for this Ji Peng, he had used some kind of mystical ability from the demon realm to survive. What he needed to do now was to find a suitable corporeal body to possess and survive. And Xiao Hua was his best target. Thinking about possession, Xiao Hua's heart calmed down. He naturally thought of his sealed Naiwan palace and the little white dragon in his soul. Although the little white dragon had gone through a lightning tribulation and was now weak, it could not be disturbed. However, now that it was a matter of life and death, it had no choice but to put in some effort. Others might be afraid of this demon general's possession, but did Xiao Hua need to be afraid? Of course, Xiao Hua's face still showed fear. He was clearly very afraid. Ji Peng waved his hand, and the blood-red hand grabbed the seal of Tumbling Sea. This magic treasure that even third-grade illusory sword cultivators feared was now in Ji Peng's hands, like a child's toy. The quality of this magic treasure is really not bad. If it is cultivated properly, it can really step into the ranks of spiritual weapons. Previously, this sovereign really made a mistake. Ji Peng said, indeed, 3 times in one breath. It was obvious that he admired the seal of Tumbling Sea. Then, Ji Peng glanced at Xiao Hua, and the smile on his ugly face became even wider. He said, "What other good things do you have? Why don't you let this sovereign take a look? Perhaps this sovereign will be happy and leave you a remnant soul. I'll let you enter the cycle of reincarnation." Xiao Hua sneered, and the fear on his face lessened. He waved his hand and tried the lightning controlling technique. As expected, this blood drop paradise was even more sealed than Qing Xian's black flames. None of the lightning flashed. Don't be delusional. The fluctuation of the spell immediately attracted Ji Peng's attention. He sneered and said, although Lei Ting's lightning controlling technique is powerful, he was still injured by this sovereign and this sovereign's blood drop paradise. If even he can't do it, how can you, the disciple, succeed? As he spoke, Ji Peng looked at the other side of the blood drop paradise. The Buddha's Saraira was also dimming in the blood drop paradise. However, the Buddhist mantras were still coming out of the Buddha's mouth and landing on the black gas. Xiao Hua was afraid that if the mantras were to stop, something would happen to Zhang Qingxiao. Evil creature. Ji Peng looked at Zhang Qingxiao with a cold gaze. He scolded and grabbed with his hand. Several rays of blood-red light landed on Zhang Qingxiao's body. In an instant, he caught the black gas and brought it in front of him. As for Xiao Hua's Buddhist Saraira, Ji Peng didn't even care about it. It was as if it was harmless to him. Xiao Hua was helpless. He urged the Saraira to return to the top of his head and put away the Buddha's seal. He opened his compassionate eyes and looked at Ji Peng. Although Buddhism is the nemesis of demonic cultivators, it seems to be effective against the demonic cultivators of the demonic world as well. It's a pity that my cultivation level is too low. In his eyes, I'm just a side dish, Xiao Hua thought to himself. Now, I'm afraid I have to lure Ji Peng into my Naiwan palace and think of another way. Xiao Hua knew that he was a golden core cultivator. His soul had already solidified. Ji Peng definitely wouldn't dare to rush into his soul to possess him. He was confident that he would first occupy Xiao Hua's Naiwan palace and gradually nibble away at it. Only then would he have a chance to succeed. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking, Ji Peng grabbed with his hand again. The black gas and wisps of blood wrapped around Zhang Qingxiao fell into his blood-red hand. Zhang Qingxiao's figure appeared in midair. At that moment, Zhang Qingxiao looked very lonely. Her previous arrogant aura was long gone. Her hands drooped slightly, and her face was extremely pale. As for her eyes, they were looking at the blood below her. She didn't dare to look at Ji Peng at all. Evil creature. Ji Peng didn't let Zhang Qingxiao off. He scolded, "I thought that you were developing well in the Cultivation 3 Kingdoms. That's why I sent a wisp of my spirit to follow Qing Xian to see you. I wanted to give you some benefits. However, I didn't expect that you would actually forget everything this sovereign told you, and even want to kill this sovereign. You're really bold." Zhang Qingxiao lowered her head and didn't answer. "Don't think that I'll forgive you just because I'm satisfied with what you've done." Ji Peng continued to berate her. "Since I can turn you from a demonic beast into a human, I can naturally turn you from a human into a demonic beast, even a secular animal." As he spoke, Ji Peng grabbed with his hand. Streaks of blood flashed from his hand and shot towards Zhang Qingxiao's body. Roar! A strange roar came from Zhang Qingxiao's mouth. She raised her head. Her fearful eyes flashed with shock and anger. Then, she looked at Xiaohua. Her eyes flashed with determination. Chapter 2735. Second Senior Brother. Xiaohua saw something in Zhang Qingxiao's eyes and hurriedly called out, "You want to die? Do you think you can die?" Ji Peng sneered. He flicked his middle finger, and a streak of blood fell on Zhang Qingxiao's face. Zhang Qingxiao's body was slightly sluggish, and he could no longer move. Then, Ji Peng stretched out his hand, and his originally long arm reached between Zhang Qingxiao's eyebrows. Xiaohua could no longer allow Ji Peng to wreak havoc. With a wave of his hand, he took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the urging of his transcendence energy, a ray of blue light flashed and shot towards Ji Peng. Crack! With a crisp sound, the blue light quickly hit Ji Peng's arm. That blood-red arm suddenly congealed, and cracks quickly appeared on it. "Oh, this is the Kunlun mirror, isn't it?" Ji Peng exclaimed. He did not dare to be careless, and the blood on his arm quickly surged, wanting to protect the congealed part. But just as he moved, a crack sounded. That blood-red arm actually broke, and the congealed part in the middle fell into the air. Hiss! It really is the Kunlun mirror. Ji Peng sucked in a breath of cold air, but there was no fear in his tone. Instead, it was a kind of surprise. Xiaohua's divine telekinesis swept over, and the corner of his mouth revealed a bitter smile. The congealed blood fell into the blood drop cave and quickly melted, becoming one with the cave. Looking at Ji Peng's broken arm, with the surging blood, it quickly reconnected, and a whole arm touched between Zhang Qingxiao's eyebrows. Roar! Zhang Qingxiao's originally immobile body suddenly moved again. He raised his head and roared, lying on the ground. The black gas and blood light around his body continued to surge, and the human figure continued to expand. Many protrusions had already pierced through his clothes. Soon, a body that looked like a cow and a horse appeared in midair. This body was huge, probably more than 10 feet long. This is the statue of that magical beast at the bottom of the Thousand Zhang Peak. Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. The one who possessed Zhang Qingxiao's body was not a devil, but a magical beast. Although Zhang Qingxiao had devoured the primordial spirit of the magical beast, he still had the memories of the magical beast. Furthermore, the primordial spirit of the magical beast was extremely powerful. Although Zhang Qingxiao had devoured the magical beast had already imperceptibly influenced Zhang Qingxiao over the years. Under these circumstances, it was no wonder that Zhang Qingxiao was extremely fearful of Ji Peng, afraid to see him. He didn't even dare to mention Ji Peng. This was because Qing Fomin was Ji Peng's mouth. Oh, no wonder. Just when Xiaohua realized what had happened, Ji Peng's face also showed a look of understanding. He laughed and said, So you actually devoured Di Luo's primordial spirit. It wasn't Di Luo who possessed you. You even used a secret technique to erase the devil soul imprint. If that's the case, I can understand what happened to Di Luo. While speaking, Ji Peng pointed his finger at Di Luo's head, which was still blurry. As if a curtain had been lifted, Zhang Qingxiao's face was revealed on Di Luo's head. Although Zhang Qingxiao's face was full of fear, his eyes were filled with shame. Ha ha ha, Zhang Qingxiao. Oh, Zhang Qingxiao, being this sovereign's mount is a great opportunity for you. Do you think a little human cultivator like you can enter this sovereign's eyes? If you didn't have Di Luo's primordial spirit, I would have treated you as an ant and wouldn't even look at you, Ji Peng said with a smile. However, in the eyes of the helpless Xiao Hua, who was holding the Kunlun mirror in his hand, he didn't know whether to attack or not. His smile was very strange. Even in the devil world, there are many mounts for me to choose from. Di Luo is the only one because I chose you. It's fate that Di Luo chose you. When Ji Peng talked about Di Luo's background, he was a little vague, as if he didn't want Zhang Qingxiao to know. Well, since even the devil soul imprint has been erased, you can't go back to the devil realm. I can only think of a way for you here in the Xiaoyu continent. Ji Peng seemed to be very concerned about Di Luo. He pointed his finger at Di Luo and scolded. Di Luo, what are you waiting for? Immediately, Di Luo's body started to shake violently. The blood-red light rushed from his feet to his head. Roar! Zhang Qingxiao's head roared, as if it was resisting the flood of Di Luo's memories. However, looking at Ji Peng's smiling eyes, Xiao Hua knew that Zhang Qingxiao definitely couldn't resist this devil general's methods. When the blood-red light filled Di Luo's body, Zhang Qingxiao's eyes became dull. That would be the moment when Zhang Qingxiao's primordial spirit disappeared. Go to hell. Xiao Hua knew that he couldn't wait any longer. Even if he wanted to lure Ji Peng into his trap, he couldn't do it now. He couldn't wait for Zhang Qingxiao to disappear from the world and then drag out an ignoble existence. Xiao Hua knew that the Kunlun mirror couldn't work, and the flying swords and other things in his space wouldn't be effective either. So he simply put away his magic weapons and sword gourd, and flew towards Ji Peng with a wishful staff in his hand. Ji Peng laughed out loud when he saw Xiao Hua flying towards him. He raised his hand, and the blood-red light rushed towards Xiao Hua and said, Di Luo gave me the Heavenly Devil Sect. Are you going to give me the Thunder-controlling sect as well? With me possessing your body, it would be easy for you to become the head of the Thunder-controlling sect. Your staff isn't a devil weapon. Ji Peng's blood-red light was like a blood spirit bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws, rushing toward Xiao Hua without fear. However, the blood-red light was destroyed by Xiao Hua's wishful staff in an instant. It didn't show any power at all. Once again, Ji Peng had not expected this. Oh, this thing seems to be like the soul-slaying primordial light. It's the embryonic form of an ancient monster. Ji Peng suddenly woke up and couldn't help but be eager to give it a try. You really are giving me a body to possess. I didn't expect you to have so many good things. This old man can't wait to see how many secrets you have. However, when Ji Peng spoke to this point, he looked at the Buddha relic above Xiao Hua's head. Extreme disgust appeared in his blood-red eyes as he said indifferently, "However, this venerated one really hates the Buddhist sect's relics. Before I possess him, it is best that I destroy this thing." As he spoke, Ji Peng opened his mouth and spat out a mass of blood-red light. The blood-red light was like a spell. It suddenly expanded in mid-air like a layer of red gauze and immediately covered the Buddha, Sarira. The dim Buddha light couldn't penetrate the blood-red light. Inside the Buddha, Sarira, Xiao Hua's primordial spirit felt a sense of suffocation. Goo-goo! Ji Peng's mouth suddenly chanted an inexplicable rhythm, like a curse. The blood-red light covering the Buddha, Sarira, flourished, and many drops of blood rushed out from the nearby blood-dripping grotto heaven and landed on the blood-red light. The entire blood-red light was like a blood stain, rapidly corroding the Buddha light. It looked like it was going to swallow the Buddha, Saraira, into the blood stain. Xiaohua panicked, facing this strange Ji Peng from the devil realm. His strength comparable to a nascent soul stage cultivator was simply unable to be used. All of his methods were simply ineffective. It really felt like, when it's time to use it, it's time to regret not having enough knowledge. Fight! Xiaohua could only wave the wishful staff and do his best to get close to Ji Peng. TSK Tisk. Ji Peng opened his mouth as if he had seen a delicious meal. He praised, "The Buddha Saraira has been cultivated by you to this extent. In this Lord's eyes, it's like a fat sheep. Seeing that you're so attentive, this Lord won't completely swallow your primordial spirit." As he spoke, Ji Peng let out 2 startled cries. Then he said, Your Buddha Saraira? How did you cultivate it? Why does it resemble a Buddha? If it were to be swallowed out of thin air, would it really be a waste? Later on, if I could attain the position of Buddha, wouldn't this Lord be half a step into the Devil Commander, or even the Devil Lord? As for the second shock, Ji Peng did not cry out. Instead, he looked at his arm. Because Xiaohua had flown over, the previous blood-red light had been shattered by Xiaohua. Ji Peng stretched out his arm and blocked the wishful staff with his fist. Xiaohua's wishful staff was amazing. Seeing that Ji Peng's fist was instantly shattered by the wishful staff, the blood-red light on Ji Peng's arm immediately poured in and formed a perfect fist again. However, this fist simply existed for a moment under the wishful staff before it was destroyed again. Of course, the arm connected to the fist surged again, and the blood-red light formed a fist again. This fist was naturally shattered under Xiaohua's wishful staff. However, in a few moments, it had repeated several times. Ji Peng could not help but be shocked. His gaze fell from the Buddha, Saraira, and stared at the wishful staff for a long time. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was recalling something. Suddenly, a blood-red light flashed in front of his eyes. He said with joy, This is the wishful staff of the 5 elements? Yes, this is it. This is not in the 5 elements. However, just as Ji Peng's joy was born, and before he could reach out his blood-red hand to take the wishful staff, he heard a sorrowful cry from Di Luo's body. It was the voice of Zhang Qingxiao. Roar! My will is against heaven. I do not want to leave the human world. My will is to return to heaven. I do not want to leave my heart. My will is to enter the devil. Blood stains the sky. As Zhang Qingxiao's voice came out, Di Luo's huge body flashed rapidly and suddenly shrank as if he was about to turn back into a human form. The blood-red light outside his body was also forced back a few feet. Ji Peng's attention was once again attracted by Zhang Qingxiao. He really did not expect that Di Luo, who had always been under his crotch, would suddenly change today. Although your will is against heaven, you do not have the power to go against heaven. You are still a little beast under my feet. Ji Peng laughed sinisterly. He opened his mouth again and spat out another mouthful of blood. At this moment, Xiaohua's figure suddenly moved. As fast as lightning and as light as the wind, he instantly appeared under Ji Peng's abdomen. A familiar voice came from Ji Peng's abdomen. Suddenly, a gap opened up in the blood-red abdomen. Qing Xian's head and arm poked out from the gap, holding the mace in his hand. Chapter 2736. Woo! The mace smashed towards Xiaohua as he shouted, This sovereign knew you were the most cunning. I've been waiting here for a long time. Seeing that the mace was about to trap him, although Xiaohua was shocked, he did not seem to be in a hurry. He extended his wishful staff and cleverly placed it on top of the mace. His entire body once again flew towards Ji Peng's chest. Oh? Qing Xian had clearly never seen such a marvelous staff technique and was unconsciously stunned. Now's the time. Seeing that Ji Peng was close, Xiaohua gritted his teeth opened his mouth, and spat out the spiritual fire that he had been brewing. As the spiritual fire rushed into the air, Xiaohua waved his hand and simultaneously used the divine fire art. The scarlet spiritual fire was instantly scattered by Xiaohua into a net. There was simply no time for Ji Peng or Qing Xian to react. The nearly 5 zhang tall demonic body was completely wrapped up. Xiaohua used up 50% of his magic power to use the spiritual fire to trap Ji Peng's enormous demonic body. Scarlet, true fire. Ji Peng's ugly face revealed extreme shock. Qing Xian, who was on his stomach, was also stunned. However, Xiaohua simply did not answer them. He accurately used the divine fire art one after another, causing the fire net to rapidly shrink. Squeak, squeak. Countless soft sounds came from within the fire net. Regardless of whether it was the black flames or the blood-red light, once they touched the scarlet spiritual fire, they all dissipated into thin air. At this time, Ji Peng did not dare to speak anymore. He hastily shrank his demonic body. However, he could only shrink to about 3 zhang before he could no longer shrink any further. At this time, the 3 zhang tall black gas mixed with the blood-red light was completely covered by the fire net. Squeak, squeak. Countless light black smoke rose from where the fire, black gas, and blood-red light came in contact with each other. Ji Peng also let out a rare, blood-curdling scream. Oh, like a hurricane, the black gas suddenly swelled and a ball of black flames rushed out from the black gas, instantly pushing the fire net several feet high. At the same time, dark brown blood spurted out from the black flames and landed on the fire net. The fire net of the spiritual fire immediately became much dimmer. Ha! Following a wild laugh, a blood-red shadow rushed out from the black flames and instantly rushed through the fire net. Although the blood-red shadow's blood-red light was suddenly ignited by the fire net, the blood-red shadow immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and extinguished the fire. However, the blood-red shadow was already extremely thin. Xiaohua immediately understood Ji Peng's plan when he saw the blood shadow rushing towards Zhang Qingxiao, who was gradually taking on a human form. Go! The primordial spirit within the Buddha's Saraira waved his hand, and the clear water bottle appeared in his hand. Pour! Following the Buddha's mudra, the innate primordial water rushed towards the bloodstains surrounding the Buddha's Saraira like a heavenly river. In an instant, a crack appeared in the bloodstains, and the innate primordial water rushed towards Zhang Qingxiao's surroundings, completely surrounding him. Xianming primordial water? The blood-red shadow was stunned in midair. It was Qing Xian's incredulous voice. How could such a treasure be in your hands? Oh no, this is not good. When Xiaohua heard Qing Xian's voice, he immediately knew that he had fallen into a trap. He hurriedly looked towards the fire net. However, at this moment, his vision turned black and an arrogant voice sounded in his mind. Haha, little bug. How can you be my opponent? Oh no. Why? Why is your Naiwan palace sealed? Okay, how could Xiaohua answer him? Without waiting for Ji Peng to do anything else, the primordial spirit in Xiaohua's soul immediately activated its soul strands. Thousands of soul strands suddenly rushed out of the Dharma Eye's soul mark and completely enveloped Ji Peng's blood-red shadow like tentacles. Damn it! What the hell are you? Are you still a cultivator? How do you know soul spells? Ji Peng was flustered and exasperated. It was only now that he realized that after scheming for so long, he had fallen into Xiaohua's trap. He might as well have used his methods to kill Xiaohua from the start. You want to use this half-baked soul spell to keep me here? Ji Peng's blood-red shadow was still struggling with all its might. Xiaohua's soul strand were no match for this blood-red shadow. Similarly, Qing Xian's blood-red shadow also came to help like a stream of light. Goldie, Xiaohua sneered. His consciousness entered the space and shouted, "There's a delicious meal outside." Woo! As soon as Goldie's figure came out of the space, a kind of fear that came from the bottom of its heart emerged from Ji Peng's mouth. Demon god above, which demon god did I provoke? This seems to be Di Ting, right? When Goldie saw the two blood-red shadows, its eyes brightened. It swung its large tail and charged over. Wang Ji Peng and Qing Xian's blood-red shadows rapidly emitted blood-red light. The entire blood-drop grotto heaven began to tremble violently. Countless huge blood-red palms emerged from the grotto heaven and grabbed at Goldie. Woo, Goldie wailed, as if it was afraid. At this point, you still want to fight like a cornered beast? Watch how I destroy you. Xiao Hua sneered. The Buddha's Saraira activated the innate primordial water and quickly formed a huge space around him, enveloping everything inside. You have a blood drop grotto heaven, but I have the primordial water space. Xiao Hua sneered and said to Goldie, "Go eat them." Goldie once again swung its tail and flew towards the blood-red shadows. With a humph sound, a silver-white brilliance was already coming out of its nostrils. This time, Ji Peng and Qing Xian were really scared out of their wits. Although the blood-red light outside the primordial water rushed in without regard for their lives, and some places had already been infiltrated by blood threads, Goldie's brilliance had already enveloped the two blood-red shadows. A kind of innate fear and an irresistible force had already sealed all the divine abilities of the two demon generals. Wait a moment. At this moment, a cold voice rang out from the side. Xiao Hua raised his head. It was Zhang Qingxiao, whose entire body was flashing with blood-red light. Although Zhang Qingxiao had not completely transformed into a human, her entire upper body had already been restored. Xiao Hua frowned. He still couldn't figure out whether this was Zhang Qingxiao or Di Luo. He coldly asked, "What do you want?" "Nothing else. I want to devour this Ji Peng." Zhang Qingxiao also said coldly, "This is only one of Ji Peng's avatars. It only has 30% of Ji Peng's power. If you kill him today, Ji Peng will definitely know, and he will definitely rush to the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. At that time, you will definitely not be his opponent. If I devour this avatars, not only will I be able to get rid of Ji Peng's imprisonment, but I will also be able to evolve and become a true demon." Elector Ji Peng chose Di Luo as his mount because he liked Di Luo's ability to evolve infinitely. Xiao Hua looked at Zhang Qingxiao, wondering if he should believe her. However, the blood-red threads outside the primordial water were already baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. He really didn't have the time nor the means to judge. "Goldie, wait a moment," Xiao Hua ordered. When Goldie stopped, Xiao Hua coldly said, "If you are Zhang Qingxiao, I will naturally let you devour me. But if you're Di Luo, how can I let you have your way? Believe it or not, it's up to you," Zhang Qingxiao said disdainfully as usual. "Go." Xiao Hua waved his hand, indicating that he agreed. Zhang Qingxiao's 4 legs moved slightly and landed beside Goldie. She also looked at Goldie with some fear. She opened her mouth, and a blood-red light fell on Ji Peng's blood shadow. "Ah, Di Luo." Ji Peng suddenly laughed out loud. Unfortunately, before his laughter could be heard, Xiao Hua sneered. "If it was before, I wouldn't have trusted my second senior brother. But now, with your sowing dissension, I can trust him. A demon is a demon." Ji Peng didn't expect that he would be so clever and make a fool of himself. He was extremely frightened and shouted, "Di Luo, how dare you devour me? When I come back, I will definitely..." Before Ji Peng could finish his threat, the blood-red light covered him. With a roar, Zhang Qingxiao swallowed him into her mouth. Then, the blood-red light around Zhang Qingxiao's body became brighter and brighter, completely covering Ji Peng. The blood-red threads that were forcibly seeping into the primordial water also stopped abruptly. "You could taste it now." Xiao Hua indifferently ordered Goldie. "Roar." Goldie was overjoyed. It sniffed and swallowed Qing Xian into its stomach. "Che." Goldie burped and stretched. "Thank you, Mother." "Goldie, you still need to cultivate more." Thinking of Goldie's fear just now, Xiao Hua frowned and said, "In the future, Mother's enemies will become more and more powerful. Only by cultivating can you protect Mother. Goldie's eyes lit up when he heard the words protect Mother. He hurriedly said, Boy understands. Boy will go back and cultivate properly. That's Mother's good child. Xiaohua actually didn't know how Goldie cultivated, so she just praised it and sent it back to the space. After sending Goldie back, Xiaohua looked around. The primordial water formed countless whirlpools that blocked the surroundings, so she didn't know what was going on outside. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua activated the Buddha Sarara and opened a small gap in the primordial water. Her divine sense carefully passed through, and she saw that outside the primordial water was the original blood drop paradise. At this moment, the four walls of the blood-dripping paradise had already calmed down. The bloodstains that had stretched out like ferocious ghosts were frozen in midair. Although they were no longer wreaking havoc, they did not shrink back either. There were so many bloodstains that they filled the entire space. It was a very strange sight. The blood drop paradise was still sealed, and there was no sunlight or snow falling. Only that kind of blood-red brilliance illuminated the space. It's finally over. Xiaohua looked at the quiet space and couldn't help but sigh in relief. She activated the Buddha Sarira and stored the primordial water. Then, Xiaohua waited for a while and stored the Buddha Sarira, whose Buddha light had already dimmed into her body. Looking at the entire space again, the only thing that was still moving was the blood cocoon around Zhang Qingxiao's body. This blood cocoon was moving up and down rapidly, as if it was breathing. The blood-red brilliance swayed from time to time, like a flickering candle. The brilliance lingered around and merged with the blood light on the walls. Chapter 2737. The black gas and black flames trapped by Xiaohua's spirit light had already been burned to a size of one zhang. However, the spirit light was still as inconspicuous as before. It didn't seem to have any heat and didn't seem to exist at all. Xiaohua's finger moved slightly. He wanted to activate the divine flame art once more to extinguish the last of the black qi and black flames. However, his eyebrows twitched. He looked at the blood cocoon that was still surging and seemed to have thought of something. He pointed with his finger, and the spiritual fire stopped. It only tightly trapped the black qi and black flames, and no longer burned them. After checking again, Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a pensive expression. He frowned and sat cross-legged in a corner of the blood drop grotto heaven, waiting for Zhang Qingxiao to come out of the cocoon. This wait lasted for more than 3 days. Seeing that the blood cocoon around Zhang Qingxiao's body was indeed shrinking, Xiaohua knew that it should be going smoothly. Sure enough, in the end, a naked human figure appeared from the blood cocoon. The human figure was covered in a blood-red color, and there were some faint, strange patterns flashing within the blood-red color. However, these patterns were like a flash in the pan as they floated out from the blood-red color. There was a burst of cryptic fluctuations, and then it disappeared. Even Xiaohua's Buddhist sense couldn't see it clearly. Roar, the blood-red human figure slowly stood up in the air. The face, which was also blood-red, was even more strange. It was flat, and there were no protrusions or facial features. Xiaohua's face was calm. His body floated up as the human figure stood up. He put his hands behind his back and looked indifferently. In what seemed like an instant, the human figure's flat face suddenly exploded, and Zhang Qingxiao's boundlessly handsome face suddenly appeared. Immediately, the blood-red color on the human figure's body disappeared like a receding tide. The person waved his hand, and a gorgeous set of clothes appeared in his hand. He slowly put it on in front of Xiaohua. After putting on the clothes, the person slowly turned around. His face was still Zhang Qingxiao's face from 3 days ago. His gaze was still calm, and there was occasionally a flash of red light in his eyes. However, facing Xiaohua's gaze, there was a kind of gaze that Xiaohua had never seen in Zhang Qingxiao's eyes before. Shame. A Zhang Qingxiao with shame. Was she still Zhang Qingxiao? Although this shame only lasted for a moment, Xiao Hua could see that after the shame, Zhang Qingxiao's eyes were calm. No matter how Xiao Hua looked at it, it wasn't calm. "You are Zhang Qingxiao." Xiao Hua looked at her for a moment and asked in a deep voice. "I'm not." Zhang Qingxiao shook her head slightly. Xiao Hua's heart sank. "I'm just a lowly magical beast in the devil realm. A body possessed by a magical beast," Zhang Qingxiao said coldly. In an instant, Xiao Hua understood. The always arrogant Zhang Qingxiao, the always arrogant Zhang Qingxiao, the always arrogant Zhang Qingxiao, the always arrogant Zhang Qingxiao. The shame in her eyes just now was not because she was naked in front of him, but because she revealed the details of a magical beast possession in front of him. In fact, it was also the shame of Zhang Qingxiao revealing her true form as a magical beast in front of him. With the arrogance of a person, who else could it be but Zhang Qingxiao? At least it wasn't that Di Luo. Xiao Hua smiled, bowed, and said, "Congratulations, second senior brother." Zhang Qingxiao stared blankly and said indifferently, "I'm just a lowly magical beast in the devil realm. There are billions of magical beasts like this. In this life, I'm afraid I can't escape this identity. You, a gold core cultivator, no longer need to call me brother. Haha, congratulations, second senior brother, for your great improvement in cultivation." Xiao Hua was still smiling. "Also, congratulations, second senior brother, for revealing your naked body in front of Zhang Yutong and revealing it in front of this little brother. Your grandmother." Zhang Qingxiao's snow-white face flushed red. She angrily scolded, "You took advantage of me, and now you're still pretending to be obedient. When you're naked, send me a message talisman, and I'll call my heavenly demon sex female disciples to come and watch." Haha. "I'm afraid second senior brother won't be able to wait for this opportunity." Xiao Hua looked up to the sky and laughed loudly. His figure slowly flew towards Zhang Qingxiao. Zhang Qingxiao was a bit hesitant and even more puzzled. Xiao Hua flew in front of Zhang Qingxiao and stretched out his hand. "Second senior brother, I remember when I first arrived at Yellow Flower Ridge, I was often confused. At that time, I didn't have cultivation. It seems that there was one time when I fell into the coal pond. It was second senior brother who happened to pass by the coal pond and saved me. That day, I was clamped under your arm. Now, it's been dozens of years and I still haven't hugged. Come, give me a hug. Let me feel the warmth of that day again." Why don't I remember such a thing?" Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiao Hua's arms and was slightly surprised. Then, she became alert again. Yes, between cultivators, except for husband and wife, even the intimate contact between martial brothers was very rare. No matter if they were familiar or unfamiliar, cultivators would try their best to maintain a certain safe distance between each other. They would never let others get close. Especially now, when Zhang Qingxiao's identity was uncertain, who would stretch out their arms to hug Xiao Hua like this? However, looking at Xiao Hua's eyes, Zhang Qingxiao's heart was slightly warm. The corner of her mouth hung a smile. She opened her arms and hugged Xiao Hua without fear. Although it was just a simple hug, just a simple crossing of arms, just a few light pats from Xiao Hua on Zhang Qingxiao's back. Just a few moments, the familial affection in this hug was more mellow and solid than any friendship between cultivators, any sworn brothers, all of this was more mellow and solid. Zhang Qingxiao gently smiled, pushed Xiao Hua away, and said, "Your grandmother, don't tell me that after seeing my naked body, you want to repay me with your body? I already have Zhang Yutong in my heart. I won't be interested in a man like you. I advise you, you better give up early. You only have one Zhang Yutong. This young master has Fairy Hong Xia and Shui Shui. 2 people, so I won't give my heart to you. Don't think too much." Xiao Hua also pulled away and said with a smile, "Sigh, little junior brother." Hearing Xiao Hua's laughter, Zhang Qingxiao sighed and said, "Don't blame me for my coldness just now. I really don't want people to know that I am the lowest demon beast in the demon realm. Heroes don't ask where they come from. Miracles are done by people. Xiao Hua said with a smile. No matter if it is a demon beast, a demon, or even a cultivator or a demon beast, they all have the right to cultivate, since the heavens let you take this step. Naturally, there is a reason for the heavens. Why do you have to blame the heavens and accuse others? Although it is so, a beast is a beast, a human is a human. I still don't want people to know, Zhang Qingxiao said indifferently. And don't worry, second senior brother, little brother can make a hard oath, Xiao Hua said with a smile. No need. Zhang Qingxiao hurriedly raised her hand. If you, I still can't believe it, then there is no one in this world that I can trust. I, Xiao Hua, if I reveal second senior brother's secret under the heavens, I will no longer be able to reach the Tao. Xiao Hua didn't stop because of Zhang Qingxiao's dissuasion and still made a hard oath. Zhang Qingxiao's eyes flashed with gratitude, but her mouth was still unforgiving. Damn it, this Xiao Hua is the name that Master gave you. Who knows what your original name is? This hard oath is a bit neither fish nor fowl. Second senior brother, then what do you think should be done? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Just be the first vice sect leader of my heavenly demon sect, Zhang Qingxiao said with a smile. I can only be at ease if you are always by my side. Don't. You better find someone else. Xiao Hua waved his hand, then rolled his eyes and said, Oh right, actually this Di Luo doesn't seem to be simple. Didn't second senior brother say it just now? The reason why Ji Peng chose Di Luo is because he took a fancy to some characteristic of unlimited evolution. Yes, it is indeed so. Zhang Qingxiao explained without hiding anything from Xiao Hua. Di Luo is the lowest demon beast in the demon world. Di Luo are everywhere. Compared to ordinary animals like pigs and cows in the mortal world, Di Luo doesn't have any attack power. They can only be food for other demon beasts. No demon cultivator or demon general has ever used a Di Luo as a mount. However, according to the secret of the demon world, Di Luo has a rare special ability. That is, it can devour other demons. It has the ability to devour demons. How? How can this be? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Just by eating, can it be so powerful? How can it be so simple? Zhang Qingxiao said with a smile. This is just to say that Di Luo has this ability, just like how the disciples of a cultivation family may have the bloodline of the real world. How many people can awaken it? And Di Luo is even rarer. I'm afraid that 1 in a billion or 10 billion people have this ability. That's already not bad. Then, Xiao Hua wanted to ask, but stopped after saying one word. Zhang Qingxiao didn't dare to ask Xiao Hua. She continued. Also, although Di Luo can devour demons, it can only do so under its own power. If an ordinary Di Luo devours a demon cultivator at once, then it will definitely explode and die. There won't be a second result. Therefore, even if there is such a Di Luo, whether it can have the opportunity to devour the most suitable demons, and whether there will be suitable demons to devour along the way is absolutely an extremely difficult problem. Also, Di Luo can't just simply devour demons. It also needs to cultivate. It also needs to practice martial arts. Then Zhang Qingxiao was about to tell more secrets of Di Luo. But Xiao Hua waved his hand, smiled, and said, Second brother, you don't need to tell me so many details. I'm just a little curious. Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiao Hua with deep meaning, stopped explaining, and finally said, From Ji Peng's memory, I already know that one of the demon lords in the demon world is Di Luo. Demon lord? What's his cultivation level? Xiao Hua's eyes lit up and asked. Chapter 2738. Haha. Remember, the demon realm's classification is different from the Dawnrain continents. Generally speaking, it's demons, demon soldiers, demon generals, demon marshals, demon kings, demon monarchs, demon emperors, and demon venerables. Zhang Qingxiao smiled. Of course, this is only the general classification. There are still some details, and each demon realm has its own differences. demon realm? Xiaohua asked again. Zhang Qingxiao frowned. She knew that if she said too much, it would affect Xiaohua's cultivation. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, "You shouldn't know this with your current cultivation. Don't ask too much. You only need to remember that Ji Peng is only a demon general. You are already no match for him, let alone a demon venerables." Actually, hearing this, Xiaohua explained that Ji Peng is only a demon general. From what I see, his cultivation is close to that of a nascent soul realm cultivator. He might not even be as powerful as a nascent soul realm cultivator. But I don't seem to be able to use my full strength. Moreover, in this blood drop paradise, I'm no match for him. Zhang Qingxiao nodded slightly. Looking at everything around her, she smiled and said, "It's not like you don't have the cultivation method of this blood drop paradise. I'm sure you know that in this blood drop paradise, all magic will be suppressed by the demonic blood. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth will also be blocked. Fortunately, you're a golden core cultivator and have a golden core supporting your magic power. If you were a foundation establishment cultivator, I'm afraid you'd be killed by Ji Peng as soon as you started." But Xiaohua sat cross-legged for 3 days. He wasn't just waiting for Zhang Qingxiao, but also reflecting on his own battle. He clearly had the cultivation level and strength, but he was unable to gain the upper hand in front of Ji Peng. Ji Peng had forced him to use the last of his spiritual fire, and he had barely managed to win by relying on Goldie and the soul thread. If Xiaohua's Niwen Palace had not been sealed, the outcome would have been unknown. He really didn't understand. Zhang Qingxiao comforted him. "Besides, this is your first time facing such a fierce person from the demon realm like Ji Peng. This guy is a demon general who experienced the battle of Imperial Demon Valley. Your battle experience can't compare to his. In the future, when you fight more, you'll naturally be able to handle him." Seeing that Zhang Qingxiao didn't tremble when she talked about Ji Peng, Xiaohua was happy. He shook his head and said, "Actually, I've been reflecting on it for a long time." "Oh, tell me about it." Zhang Qingxiao raised her eyebrows and asked meaningfully. That's right, this was the first time the two of them had such an in-depth discussion. Their bottom lines were gradually being revealed. First of all, little brother's magical equipment is not good enough. Xiaohua stretched out a finger and said, "Although little brother has some magic treasures, I am unable to display their full power. I don't know if the quality of the magic treasures is not good enough or if little brother's technique is not good enough. Of course, I also have some ferocious items that are similar to the spirit-slaying vital light, but they're all useless. They are far from being refined successfully. The spirit-punishing vital light could not even reach Ji Peng. As for the 5 elements wishful heaven staff, it can only be used as a weapon. It is far from being able to unleash the full potential of the staff technique." Zhang Qingxiao laughed and pointed with her finger. "If your wishful staff or spirit-slaying primary light can be completed within 1,000 years, you can laugh. Such a ferocious ancient object. Could it be that it had gone through countless tempering before it could become a weapon? Then, the day it became a weapon must have caused a celestial phenomenon. Your cultivation is not high enough, so this ferocious item cannot appear in the world. But little brother always feels that I do not have a suitable magic treasure." Xiaohua sighed. Then he stretched out his hand and said, "The second thing is the technique. Second senior brother, don't you feel that? Little brother still does not have a technique." "This, how would I know?" Zhang Qingxiao scratched his head. "Even if there aren't millions of Dharma spells on this Dawn Rain continent, there are at least several hundreds of thousands. Although it's impossible for you to see all of them, and it's also impossible for you to cultivate all of them, but you can always find a suitable Dharma spell for yourself, right?" "Perhaps." Xiaohua nodded. "Actually, second senior brother has already given little brother many jade slips. Little brother has also read them all." "Huh? You have read them all?" Zhang Qingxiao stared blankly. "So many jade slips, you can read them all?" "However, Xiao Hua did not answer Zhang Qingxiao's question. Instead, he said in distress, "Those techniques either require a high realm or are weak. Little brother does not feel good when using them." Zhang Qingxiao smacked her lips and seemed to have thought of something. She asked, "That's right, the dry separation pill that you wanted last time. You took it yourself, right? How many did you get?" Xiaohua looked at Zhang Qingxiao curiously. He knew that she did not know how many medicinal pills Bai Fengliang gave him. However, thinking about it, Zhang Qingxiao could be considered to be very busy every day. Knowing about this kind of medicinal pill was enough. Who would really report how many pills they had? And I took it myself. Xiaohua thought for a moment and nodded. About 100 pills. Damn it, no wonder, Zhang Qingxiao said while gnashing her teeth. Others condense 1 or 2 pills is enough. You need 100 dry separation pills to condense your own pill. How much true essence do you have? How can those techniques used by ordinary people satisfy you? It's not a problem of true essence. Xiao Hua shook his head. Actually, most of it is because of little brother's physique. Of course, Xiao Hua did not say what was special about his physique. Zhang Qingxiao also did not ask. In short, your magic power far exceeds those of the same realm, and your realm is far from being comparable to your magic power. All these common techniques are not suitable for you, Zhang Qingxiao concluded. Then, he was a little puzzled. Actually, your situation seems to be similar to the legendary demon. Their realms are generally not comparable to ordinary cultivators. Advancing is also extremely difficult, but their magic power is several times or even dozens of times that of cultivators of the same realm. However, most of them are born with magical powers and do not need any techniques. Che, you are. Xiao Hua heard this and rolled his eyes at Zhang Qingxiao. Just as he was about to refute, he felt that he might hurt Zhang Qingxiao and immediately shut his mouth. Humph, remember, it's a demon, not a demon beast. Although Xiao Hua did not say it, Zhang Qingxiao also felt it. She said coldly, "In ancient times, demons were the kings that ruled the continent. But later on, demons declined and humans rose, calling them demon beasts. And demon beasts are not comparable to magical beasts. Demon beasts are a race, and there are different demon beasts within. There is no difference between humans and beasts. Even if you want to be a demon beast, they don't want you." Oh, in ancient times? Xiao Hua's eyes lit up again. Zhang Qingxiao hurriedly waved her hand and said, "This is also Ji Peng's fragmented memories. I'm not very clear. Don't ask too much." "Then what should I do about this situation?" Xiao Hua said with a bitter face. Naturally, it would be best if we can find the demon race's techniques," Zhang Qingxiao said as if she did not say anything. But Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said, "I have an idea. I don't know if it will work or not." "Say it. I will help you," Zhang Qingxiao answered without hesitation. "If I create my own technique, what do you think?" When Zhang Qingxiao heard this, she was so shocked that she almost fell from the sky. You created your own incantation? You haven't been possessed by Ji Peng, right?" "Can I?" Xiao Hua asked calmly. "If you can cultivate to the nascent soul stage or enter the spirit-severing stage, naturally you can." Zhang Qingxiao smiled bitterly. "Only when you have a nascent soul will you be able to communicate with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and perceive a trace of the heavenly Tao. Or, with enough experience, you will be able to find the most suitable techniques for yourself from the existing techniques. Only then will you be able to find your own shortcomings and create new ones. As for now, although you have the strength of the nascent soul stage, your realm and comprehension are far from enough. You can't create your own technique. It's better to give up on this idea." And Xiao Hua did not deny it. He looked at the nearby grotto heavens and said, "Third, I feel that even though I have the wishful staff and can fight with Ji Peng in close combat and have sufficient spiritual power, there is still a gap between me and Ji Peng. This gap lies within the blood drop grotto heaven." "Yes, continue." Zhang Qingxiao smiled and encouraged him. This blood-drop grotto heaven is like a world of its own. Ji Peng has the ability to control the world in this world. No matter what I do, I am under his control. Therefore, no matter what my cultivation is, I will be at a disadvantage first. Zhang Qingxiao's eyes flashed with surprise. She clapped her hands and said, "Junior brother, I have to say, you are really a genius. This kind of rule, if I didn't have the inheritance." Speaking of this, Zhang Qingxiao showed a trace of embarrassment. Obviously, this inheritance was a secret of Di Luo, and Zhang Qingxiao did not mention it before. However, Xiaohua acted as if he did not hear it and asked curiously, "What is the rule?" "Alas," Zhang Qingxiao sighed and said, "Actually, it is too early for you to know about the rule. It's better that you don't know." "Strange. If you can know, why can't I know?" Xiaohua smiled. "You think I want to know?" Zhang Qingxiao pointed at her own head and said, "None of the things in here belong to me. They were forced to me by Di Luo and that Ji Peng." "Alas, forget it." Zhang Qingxiao sighed and said, "Speaking of the rule, it is a bit troublesome. How do I even begin?" In short, the rule is similar to the confinement spell. You also know that once the confinement spell is cast, the enemy will be confined. Within the range of the confinement spell, there is a so-called rule. This rule is made by using magic and yellow talismans. It is the simplest rule, but in this blood-dripping grotto heaven, there is the rule revealed by Ji Peng's devil art. The flashing waves and the blood-red light are all a kind of rule. You can understand it this way. If you say more, I won't say more. Damn it, Ji Peng is just a devil general. How can he know the rule? Xiaohua felt that it was a bit unbelievable. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.